Day 4 of PCS2 APAC is upon us. We are halfway through this season of the PUBG Continental Series. 12 games done and dusted, 12 more games to be played. And Edge, welcome back. We've got ourselves clear front runner now after 12 games. It's Divine Esports. That was the story really for all of last night off the back of their decent start in the first weekend.
Yeah, that's right. And realistically, after the first day, it's pretty much always been the Divine show. They've been strong. They've had really absolute killer games, and they haven't really shown a sign of giving up anything. So it's going to be a big struggle for the teams under to catch up. But we're going to have some very interesting PUBG to come from it.
We saw good signs last night from Division X Gaming, specifically getting themselves into the top 5 now, 85 points. Look, they're still a very fair margin away, of course, from Divine Esports, but with 12 games to go, it can still happen. Of course, Fury just above them in third and Miramar in second are the closest competitors. But ultimately speaking, I think now over the next 12 games, because the gap is so large, you need a combination of Divine really teetering and like Sabura around Fury or Division X having even better games than the first half of the season.
Yeah, that's right. The Divine really need to have a shocker of a day to actually let teams back in, even if they have those average games, 5 points here and there. That'd be perfect for them. It makes it a lot harder for teams to catch up. But your teams like Fury, Buran, Division X, they can all have like 2 good games in a row, 2 10-kill wins, and you've closed the gap. So
yeah,
it's definitely anyone's tournament so far.
Buram, of course, the final game of last night, they finished in second place, 7 kills. Fury in that same game, third place, 11 kills. So they did at least reduce the gap ever so slightly in that final game, coming into, of course, sort of the second half of the season. Division X Gaming, though, they did the opposite. Considering all the good work that they had done in the first 2 games of last night over on Erangel, they completely balls it up on Miramar, 14th place and 1 kill in the final 2 games. It's not good enough, and that basically allowed the lead to balloon back out against Divine after they had brought it back down to a reasonable figure. Of course, tonight we will be starting with Erangel first up as our first 2 maps. So I guess that's a team to sort of look at and see, can they replicate their Erangel performance from last night?
Yeah, that's right. They'd definitely be hoping that they can match their performances yesterday. It was obviously their standout map. So if they can hold that throughout Erangel and then come into Miramar and hope for a better day, I mean,
yeah,
anything better than 14th and 1 kill's a good day for them so far. But yeah, we'll just have to see what it brings.
Yesterday, of course, though, was also the rise of teams from the bottom end of the standings, the likes of Cerberus, MSC Theraton, even, Kaiser Tuna had a pretty decent night as well, and they sort of shot up the standings. Cerberus, though, well, they had one really good game and then another half-decent game with 6 kills, ultimately still just falling short of the mark and not really the team we kind of expected them to be coming into PCS2 APAC. The best case scenario for them now is, of course, top 5. First is out of reach. They are just about, it's like 90 points. They're 90 points behind with 12 games to go. It's practically impossible. If they could somehow win from here, it would be the best ever PUBG performance over 12 games in the history of the game. MSC Theraton, though, they are a bit closer. They are into the top 6 now after a second place 5-kill performance and a first place 10-kill performance on the Miramar games to close out last night. So I guess the opposite of Division X Gaming, right? We're kind of expecting to see, can they bring it on Erangel, because they didn't do it last night.
Yeah, MSC's definitely got that potential, but what's more interesting is you see all of these teams that they're good on Erangel, but then they just drop off hard on Miramar, or they're good on Miramar and do the same for Erangel. But there's been teams that have been kind of consistent in both, but it hasn't really shown. It just doesn't. It just seems negligible.
I'd say the top
really
3.
there.
I'd say the top 3, Divine, Buram, and Fury, have probably shown the consistency of both maps more than the other teams.
Yeah, Fury for last night, previous to last night, they've had consistent games realistically over all their maps. But then last night they had a bit of an average game, but they definitely brought it back in that final Miramar.
Well, if here's another team to sort of keep an eye on as we go into tonight, let's kick things off for game number 1 of what is now day 4. We are smack bang on the halfway mark for PCS2 APAC. From here on out, there's going to be less and less games for these teams to try and catch up to Divine Esports. That's where our focus should lie for this game, and really for a whole as the night goes on. How does Divine Esports play out? Because all it takes, Edge, is one night. If it's tonight, 4 games of a couple of donuts, let's say 3 donuts or something along those lines, and you're then going into next weekend and it's anyone's game. So of course, Divine not out of the woods yet. They're not clearly finished. Not only that, but of course the Pick'ems challenges, I think this is going to be the last showing you're going to get from the APAC region now, before you have to put your votes in before next weekend. And of course, Divine Esports are heavy favorites now, but if they have a bad night tonight, that does mean if you haven't done your pick'ems, who knows, you're going to be struggling.
You would expect 40 points to be definitely nearing enough to convincingly make a pick for those pick'ems, but that's all of PUBG is. If someone has one good night here and catches back up, it still leaves it very questionable, and that's not what you want when you're you want those new pick'em skins.
Certainly agree with you. I don't think. Look, I mean, and we spoke about it last night that we very much feel as if this is now Divine Esports tournament to lose from here. It's that beauty of having such a strong lead that even a bad performance, even 2 bad performances in a row, isn't going to affect the lead that significantly. And in fact, you know, last night in the first 2 games on Erangel, Divine Esports really did get off to a slow start. They didn't gain a whole lot. It was 10 points over the 2 games played, which is okay. And this is what we've sort of been talking about as what's been their strength. Their bad games, they're still averaging like 5 points a game. But the teams directly below them at that time, which was Fury, Bay, Daytrade, struggled. And we haven't even really sort of touched on Bay and Daytrade. When you look at them in the rankings now, 5th and 7th. At one point, Daytrade was first, Bay was second, and they've stumbled down the rankings. Of course, Bay ended up with a +1 on the night last night. It's only 1 point gain technically, and they will be looking to have a much better night tonight.
And the funny thing with that is Bay still holds the best point score overall for Erangel, with having their first night they had the 40-point Erangel game, so 2 games, sorry, and they've still got that 10 points per Erangel, even though they had a really rough night last night. So Bay's another team that can just come out absolutely firing if they're feeling it, and hopefully they've refreshed over last night and going to come out and show us something interesting.
Daytrade's another one as well. They've really slipped up. Just sort of how much so? 12th, 15th, 7th, 15th, and 11th since the first 6 games were played. And I believe around the 6th game is when they'd lost, or maybe it was the 5th or 6th game is when they lost first place to Divine. Since then, Divine's been first place. But yeah, they as soon as they lost first, Daytrade just have stumbled down the rankings, and it's a matter of when's that going to stop. Does it stop at all, in fact, rather than not? You know, maybe by the end of the tournament, they could find themselves outside of the top 10 altogether. Miramar United Esports, though, as Norja's giving us a nice little tumble wheel spin around. Beautiful driving skills, but they, to me, seem like the most likeliest team to keep Divine Esports honest and give them a run for the money towards the back half of this tournament.
Buran has been very consistent when it comes to placement and kill points, but they've had a couple of rough games. Like, one that comes to mind is where they lost 2 players early from Fury on that Miramar, but they've definitely got a lot of potential, coming in as one of potential big favorites. The Victim Rise Camels taking down 2 of MSC early, so that's really not the start that MSC wants, as they did start to get a bit of point gaining last night.
Well, they got the chicken dinner to close off the Saturday night last night. This is not the start that you'd like to see, as you mentioned, and losing 2 players early on. That means that really from here on out, it's hard to expect much from MSC Theraton in this particular game. Vega God and Yoshi Minbiri will remain in the game for the time being. Not even 5 minutes has elapsed yet, and already down to 2 players. From here on, really, the best thing that they can do is just try and find as much of a compound towards the center of these circles and try and stay out of the limelight until about probably the 23-minute mark or so, and then maybe try and come out. And you just got to get lucky from here if you're going to find any points from this game. History says they're probably going to walk away with nothing.
Yeah, that's right. And I just want to point out that this is probably the first time over the entire tournament that I've seen an M16 get a kill. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's 2 on the board for the M16 now. Probably one of the least popular assault rifles in PUBG. And on the board, we did see those predictions, and Divine up there extremely high.
Slow start so far besides the MSC mishap, as we get the quad cam over Divine Esports, rightfully so, and sort of coined them the best team in APAC right now. Really, when you're performing this well in the best tournament for APAC, it's hard to not give the team that sort of credit. And I guess throughout 2020, they've just been a team that's had their ups and downs, Edge, and it seems like this is finally where it's all just clicked together for them.
Maybe, yeah, all it took was a little bit of a roster shuffle, and they're probably feeling a little bit more confident now. It does help that you've started off your tournament strong, so a lot of your players are going to be in the back of their mind just knowing that they're better than everyone else. So if you're coming out ready and willing, then you can do a lot of work.
Only the 2 kills last night for Bay as a whole, and the 1 placement point. So they don't need too much to have a better night, and you can do all of that hopefully in this first game for their sake. Monkey off the back, because with a chance they're not totally out of it, and they have shown us, they picked up 40 points in 2 games on the first weekend. If you can replicate that now, and Divine only picks up 10 points or so, suddenly it's only a 20-30 point margin with about 8 games to go. It's not that bad. Lauren's in trouble for day trade, and it feels like their entire tournament's in trouble as they just capitulate game by game. Basically, since after the first 5 games, like the first 5 games for day trade, they looked like a team that could be walking away winners for PCS2 APAC, and now they look like a team that's going to struggle to make the top 10, because if you glance over at the rankings, Edge, 69 points for day trade, and just look at the teams below them: 68, 66, 65, 65. That's bloody close.
It really doesn't take much for anyone to sort of fill in that gap, as we do see our Pick'em's code coming in. And I'd just like to mention that this contains the letter O rather than zeros. So just to keep that in mind when you're entering in this code.
Therefore, and obviously we had the interview last night with Flood and sort of got his insight into things as to how everything's shaped up last night for Battle Arena Elites, and basically just insinuating communication was a miss and decision making was also a miss. And I think that for a still relatively fresh team, these things can happen, those nights can happen, and it's just a matter of understanding where it went wrong and looking to rectify and fix those issues.
Yeah, as long as you take it back to the drawing board and you know what you need to change in order to improve your gameplay, then it's not difficult at all. And as long as your entire team is open and willing, and I definitely assume that Bay is wanting to improve and come back with better results tonight, then I think it's going to be a walk in the park, and be interesting to see what their games bring.
I like this circle. Keeps Pachinki, School, Rozhok all in play, Potato Hill. So there's a lot of sort of minor and major locations still inside of this circle. There were, of course, we saw Victim Rise, Division X Gaming, MSC Terracon's duo kind of hanging around the top half of the Rozhok River. Sophia's just going to get breached and subsequently knocked and eliminated by Nordra quite quickly. Flood Neferhora close by, and Loki's has made his way over, but Nordra's already done the run through. Is that a Ghost Darcy that was sent down for Nordra to get in? That's like a delivery package. Darcy, like, well, I'll send it down the hill. He's missed him completely though.
Yeah, I would assume so, but that one looked like it just kept on rolling. So I don't think Nordra will be able to get out of here too safely unless his teammates are able to cover the exit. But it does look like Bay is searching for him as well, just making sure they clear everything out. Don't want to leave any room unturned. And Nordra may be able to just survive for now.
Well, if had have actually kept that Darcy, it could have sort of drove down, parked it at the tree, but had a bit of cover, helped out. I don't know. Obviously, aim a miss there with the targeting of sending in the help. So, mate, the rest of Astra just hanging around Rozhok right now. Headshot, Samoy lands one back. Nuga's at least holding an angle that he can also fire a few shots, keep the pressure onto Victim Rise. And, well, Astra are kind of winning this little fight. It's not enough to win the war just yet, though, between these two teams. A lot of smoke going to be used, and heal on up, get to the vehicles, and obviously Victim Rise sensing that they're not going to win this one, and it's not the best position for them. Astra have got them surrounded, outnumbered, and really this northern part of the zone, not worth fighting for, not worth losing your life for. They're going to send it more central here for phase 2. Minute and a half till phase 3. Lots of teams already congregating towards the center portion of this sort of circle. Not too many on the edge, though. I mean, MSC Theraton, of course, the duo, they're going to come in quite late. X Stadium playing very, very slow on the south end of the circle. Kaiser Tuna, Buran out to the east, and Archangel Predator at Ruins. That's about it. Everyone else pretty central.
Yeah, the good thing about this circle in particular is there's just so much playable terrain. You've got the nice small defilade hills in the middle of the zone, and then you've got everywhere from your water tower, your Rozhok hills. You've got the chicken coops up around Potato Hill as well. So there's a lot of playable terrain. As we see, VTR has got themselves in those nice little lips, but there's always something that you can gather from these circles rather early. It's when it gets a little bit smaller that it gets a lot more difficult to sort of find a nice safe place.
We haven't spoken too much about Astra tonight, and there's been a lot of teams to talk about. They're sitting middle of the pack, literally. Just about 8th, just 2 points behind Game Home in 9th position right now. And they'll be looking to turn things around as well. It's been, right now, very similar to a lot of their PCS tournaments. Well, I mean, Charity Showdown was worse. I mean, it's seemingly shaping up to be similar to PCS1 right now for Astra, but it's still there for the taking for them to rise up the standings and have a bit of performances. Phase 3 will eventuate, and right, again, on top of Pachinki, Potato Hill, the compounds north of Pachinki, and well, school and apartments still in play as well. And if it does keep going north onto apps and school, it can really become a bit of a bonanza. Usually you'll see plentiful amounts of vehicles just sending it into apps and seeing if they can get in. Because if you don't get in for an apps finish, you're going to die.
Yeah, the apps are very normally contested late game when they are sort of a central area. Right now, not too many teams would be worrying about them, knowing that you can come in late and you can pretty much guarantee that you'll get inside of an app. Generally, teams don't have all of their players holding down a single app early, but everything changes. And as we see, Astra here taking the breach towards Divine. Levi's opens up onto Zoid, mate. Nothing else coming out. Turtle takes down Nico Extreme, trades out onto Turtle. Levi actually getting flushed out by a Walker and I'm sorry. And Diane will clean up Lynxie there. So that's Astra out very, very early. A lot earlier than they would have liked for sure.
I kind of put the Mozzie on them there, unfortunately, coming in, and they just get swatted aside by Divine Esports, who just continue to lead the way on the standings. 139 points now, and they're not done yet. JM with a knockdown onto Yoshimanburi. MSC Theraton also close by. The duo now down to the solo, which is just Vega God. If you've just joined us, MSC Theraton did lose 2 players at the very beginning of this game within the first 5 minutes. Now they've lost Yoshimanburi. It is only Vega God that remains. Now, the kill feed is quite interesting too. MBK, Long K, both knocked down by Cerberus. This is a fight that's happening on Potato Hill. As you can see now, we've switched over to it. 2 knocked, 2 players up. Fergus driving away. So he's given up on this entirely. He's even given up on Neil here. Isaki with some damage and combined with Smell. They completely outnumber and they slaughter Division X Gaming, who just run Fergus, the solo. And for Division X Gaming now, Edge, this is going to be three really bad games in a row. They've kind of teased us a little bit here after last night's Erangel game. Since then, they've really dropped the ball.
And Erangel was the map that we were sort of expecting Division X to come out and start getting that points back. They'd had a ripper of a night last night on Erangel, but weren't able to get anything on Miramar. And looks like Erangel's really not going in their favor just yet.
10 more seconds until phase number 4. Well, there goes Vega, swatted by Neferhort. As we see where we are going to be heading for what is typically the most important phase, phase 4. And, well, the Pachinki Field's still in play. That's not going to be too kind. Potato Hill taken out of it. School and Apps taken out of it as well. And all of a sudden now, Edge, it feels like Archangel Predator, Magic Esports, with the complete hard feed onto their compounds. They're in the box seat here for the first game of the night.
Yeah, and we see Fury look like they're starting to disengage their fight on XS and take a position in the zone around those barns, as Insight has called it his home for now. We've got the remaining player of Division X looking for a home as well, but it doesn't look like there's going to be much for him to take currently. He might just opt to pull into Pachinki if it's at least a little bit safe. He does find a nice little trench to play in just outside. Uses UAZ for cover and a bit of a smoke, but it's not really a good spot for him, as it looks like we may have Kaiser Tuna coming in from behind, and this might see the end of Division X.
Or maybe not. Kaiser Tuna just going to go straight past Fergus here. Beryl now has to reload. Did get the knockdown onto Style G. Crashes into the UAZ. Not quite the player. That's what you needed to hit. Fergus gets both of them and sends Kaiser Tuna out in second last place. And a bit of style points as well for the UAZ. Fergus stays alive. The nade was expecting even more to push on him, but it was only the duo, Botbass and Neza, that were there. He already got Style G as well. Well played from the solo. Cerberus apparently just going to send it into game home all of a sudden on the edge of Pachinki. Subang knocked down something else. Shows him something else. Smell on the outside, headshot, but can he get the refrag? Did get God New on top of the building, but probably not the play he really wanted to get. It was something else who had him dead to rights. Smells knocked, so is Subang. And after a good start for Cerberus, they're down to just one player.
Yeah, and where's the rest of Cerberus? We see one player breach in very early and the other player come in late, but we didn't see a real team sort of effort on that breach. It was a little bit sloppy there, and had all of Cerberus came in at the same time, they might have been able to actually take that building off of game home. So we see another engagement for Divine here, losing Levi's very early. Diane and JN. Oh! JN coming in with the drive-by and picking up Nando. Levi's gets the nade onto TD. And JN picks up Nando in return. So Levi's will get picked up. They did lose another player, but they've still got 2 alive right now.
Well, they got Bay, though, encroaching upon their position quite rapidly as well. Orkran's going to bleed out to Levi's. He'd picked up 2 there before JN came and saved the day with a drive-by. That nade might re-knock Levi's. No, it wasn't primed well enough, and so that gave him ample time to get away from that position. And really right now, Divine down to 2 players, and as I said, Bay encroaching on their position. Levi's will finish off 10-8, though Celebi from Magic Esports for the knockdown to Levi's. Only one standing for Divine Esports right now, as Levi's will be eliminated by Tong K. It's only JN that remains, but I go back to what we have been saying. I will reiterate it, Edge. Even their bad games, even the games that Divine go out early, they find kills, they find points. They've got 7 kills. So even if JN does perish here on the move inward towards the Pachinki Fields, it's still points gained that the teams below them have been struggling to even get.
Yeah, I'd definitely call this game a success. Even though you lose all your teammates early, you've still got those 7
kills. That's a really good spot.
And yeah, you're in a good spot. It does look like it's an area that teams will push up on late, as the circle is just on the edge here. So JN's really going to have to fight for his right to party here, but Divine's done a very good job to get those kills to compensate for going out early.
Down to the south farmhouses, Fury looking to put on a clinic, and they will finally eliminate all of X Stadium. Insight picking up the final kill onto Marker. So Fury should be able to get their revive. They will have 3 players still alive. They now firmly take second place as well, away from Miramar United Esports, who are on 94 points, but they've got 4 players alive. So that's going to be a tussle throughout not only this game, but really, I guess, for the remainder of PCS2 APAC. Who's going to take second? Who's going to take third, fourth, fifth, etc. as well? Obviously, first right now, seemingly, should go the way of Divine. And at this point, I would be surprised if JN doesn't get placement points here. He's in a good spot. He'd have to sort of be overwhelmed up close rather than from a distance.
It does look like there's going to be a lot of teams die before...
Never mind. Whoops.
Spoke too soon. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of teams die on the edge of zone here as a lot of people are getting forced into each other, as we see Magic Esports and VTR in the distance here. Looks they're going to have to fight for the compound before they can move into the next zone. So we're potentially going to lose another team, and then we're going to get into the placement points.
It's Archangel Predator who eliminated Divine Esports. They literally then just drove over and took JN's spot. They're like, hey, that's not a bad little spot there that you've got. You'd hate to if we take it from you, but look, 7 points gained anyway for Divine Esports, and their average. I'd love to see sort of what their actual average is right now. I'm not going to do the maths on stream, and I don't have the time to do it, but it just seems like they're always walking away with 5, 6, or 7 points in the games where they don't win or they don't get, top 3 with 10 kills.
I think it is very rare that we've seen Divine come in the game with under 5 points, maybe 1 or 2 here and there, but they have been keeping it extremely consistent, and that's everything you need if you want to sustain that lead. As we see the fight breaking out between VTR and Magic Gaming, Chibrit and Genfos teaming up to take out 3. Tonkay gets a return onto Genfos, and Genfos will get actually flushed out by Loki's. And we've just got a little bit of chaos everywhere here, as it looks like VTR will survive and will win that fight and just crawl in on the edge of the zone here.
Well, Bay now have already got more points in this game than they had for all of last night. So that's good news. It's upward trend for Battle Arena Elites. Still under the top 5. And that nade should be able to make the distance. In fact, bounced off his noggin, which actually took less damage technically because it bounced away slightly. The Molotov, though, will finish him off, and while the blue as well. So Chibrit is eliminated. Victim Rise out in 7th position. Bay will soldier on into the top 6. Fury down to the south are going to have to move for this phase 6 circle, so they're not inside of the circle. Day Trade, really the only team at the center of this circle. You can just barely see them there on your mini-map. Bay up north and over here towards the west. It's Archangel Predator and Game Home. Killer knocked down by the Molotov of Glorious. A lot of smoke utilized already. They're playing on the right-hand side of it. Momochi going to be knocked down by something else. I thought maybe CJ actually had a bit of friendly fire damage onto him there, but it wasn't the case. 5 kills for Game Home. They have played out of Pachinki really well so far, but of course, Bay, they hear what's happening. They want to get involved, and well, that one knockdown onto CJ results in all of them wiping out. Nafahor picks up the kill. And, well, if they are smart, they'll continue to then press onto Game Home very shortly here.
Yeah, and this is exactly how Bay loves to play. As soon as they've been given a little bit of space, they generally capitalize on it extremely well. And as you could see in the mini-map, as soon as Bay heard these shots, they were running. They put their boots on and they get going. So that's exactly what Bay needs to do if they want to pick up another big game to put themselves back in with the big boys against the likes of Buram and Fury.
Well, if they wipe out Game Home here, they will jump into the top 4. Of course, the game with the rankings. Technically, they can move into the top 4 in the game as well. Loki's there just sort of warded off by the vision of the smoke, blocking those sight lines. Nefahor probably in the better position. Loki's going to be blocked as well now by that Molotov, but trying to just get an angle. Did land a headshot onto Pios, but he took a bit of damage back. 60 health. 50 health, about the same. Halfway. Nefahor from above, though. Although it's going to be a refrag immediately from something else. So a 1-for-1 trade in the end there between Bay and Game Home. Only Loki's and Flutter are up. They only had the 3 coming into this fight. Although, to be fair, Game Home also only had the 3 as well. Cloris will move forward. He has to leave the other 2 players behind for Game Home. And, well, Bay are going to have to do the same thing. They can't save Nefahor. So technically, Bay come out ahead, 2-for-1. Cloris stays alive. slightly better position, maybe, but even then, can't see either of those two teams really doing much from here for the remainder of the game. You can see the map now. Buriram, Day Trade, Fury, much better position.
Yeah, and like that, Glorious gets taken out there. So Bay does have this position in the zone, but they've got a very upset Buran on the edge of zone, starting to wrap down, looking for those lone survivors. As Godmeow does take out Ronan, sitting on the edge of zone behind his UAZ. And Buran won't want to let Fury survive here. They know Fury's extremely strong, and the team that is currently tied with points with them. So they wipe out Fury and they put themselves confirmed in that second place position.
Buriram United, though, do have this high ground advantage. Ronan's going to bleed out as well. So not only do they have the high ground, they've got the numbers as well, 4-2. Not only that, but then Day Trade can potentially third party Fury in a world of hurt right now. Insight, Juxie, going to be very difficult for them to achieve much more from here. You would suspect at the conclusion of this game, Buriram will hold on to this top 2 position. Fury, though, will of course be in the 3rd place position. And Bay have still got 2 players up, by the way, and Flood and Loki's have just gotten up to the north side. Now, Flood could potentially come in and third party Buriram, which would, well, be an absolute joy for Fury, because it would just buy them time to push into the next circle, maybe even also capitalize from the other side. And well, Buriram could find themselves pinched between Bay and Fury. Unfortunately, though, for Bay and Fury, they're only both down to 2 players, so it's not like the full force of 4 and 4 on either side of you. So Buriram can kind of split this and play it as 2v2. The other part of the equation, though, of course, is that blue is moving. Buriram need to move with it. They can't keep holding this high ground position. They need to start coming down more so towards Day Trade, towards Fury, towards Bay, towards everyone right now. So they need to sort of kill their way out of this situation. And that's the way to start it. Knock down onto Flood. And you can see the kill feed now. Fury kind of turning their attention to Day Trade as well, seeing what they can find. Loki's is very low, and he's also got the blue to worry about.
Yeah, Loki's getting saved there by Edie not having a fully reloaded SLR there. But Loki's will just throw his life away in the blue zone, deny that point. And that's a good decision by Loki's there. And now we have Fury, Buran, and Day Trade left surviving in this zone. And the zone does shrink down towards Day Trade. So Day Trade going to be quite happy being that 3-man for quite a long time in the single building there.
Yeah, Day Trade surely can't lose from here. Although Buriram have managed to keep all 4 players up. I thought maybe they would lose 1 or 2 up there in that situation, but obviously Fury just weren't in a position to also move up that hill and capitalize onto Buriram. There's no reason for them to go up the hill either. Bay did what they could try to do, but they just didn't have the numbers. Edie with a knockdown on Pujels, and that's a good start. And it does now give an avenue forward for Buriram. You've got to make use of this when you've got a knock. 1 player's on the ground, 1 player's reviving. So technically it's a 4v2 for the time it takes to get that player back up. Then he's got to heal as well. So they're able to just creep forward, get inside of this next circle for phase 8. And of course, though, for phase 9 edge, technically Day Trade will have to come out of the building. Godmeow is in the best spot in the game right now, and that's for Buriram.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the biggest problem for Day Trade here, is that they've just been stuck inside this building. They have no real exits. They have no cover. And now that Buran's got this very advantageous position, there's really no hope unless they just start hitting their shots, that they're just going to be stuck in the building.
It also means that, of course, the other 3 members of Buriram can hold on the edge quite a bit longer, knowing they've got Godmeow behind this tree in a really good spot. So Buriram can utilize this high ground advantage for quite a bit longer, in fact. Now, 15 seconds until phase 9 is going to begin. Of course, Insight, Juxie still southward behind Day Trade. They've got a lovely rock here. There's even those 2 trees just in front of them. So there's actually a bit to play with here for Fury. If they want to get involved, Day Trade could get pinched. And if they come out to the back of this compound, then, well, maybe they'll get Juxie and Insight before they then try and tussle with Buriram. But this has gone horribly wrong for Day Trade from what was essentially a hard feed. I don't know how many kills they got, but if I recall, they were on about 69 points. So I don't know. They might only have like 1 or 2 kills here.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a very high amount. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get anything more out of this, as the biggest saving grace for Fury is that Buriram's really just watching Day Trade. So Fury might be able to get them themselves in a nice second place position. But Juki, as I say that, does get taken out by the teamwork of Flash and Poochills. So it's left down to the sole survivor, but still, Buriran's putting on all of this pressure towards Daytrade. And Venotica, nice double nade onto God Meow there. So a 3v3 right now for Buriram and a lone Fury man left alive.
That's a big one. God Meow losing that position at the tree. Poochills does know that Insight sitting further afield, back towards where we saw Jukesy dying before. Nordra's going to be knocked as well by Venotica. Daytrade slowly but surely kind of making this work. Buriram have been a bit slow to go, and they've also turned their attention to Insight. Fury have kind of spoiled the party here.
Yeah, this could be
both
really
teams,
bad.
really. They've stopped both teams just focusing on each other, and really both Buriram and Daytrade focus too much on Fury here, and it's going to backfire for Buriram more than anything. Too focused on Insight, and Canaxi is going to go down. It's only Edie in a 1v3 against Daytrade, who have got the building, who have got cover. Oh, the only thing Edie's got is this crate. And a couple of smokes that are still up, but slowly dissipating. Does get one knock with the Grozer. Needs to find more. He does have another smoke right in front of him, you can see. But that's over towards the building. That's actually for Poochills and Flash, more so for them. Edie at the crate. He's running out of time as well. Needs to get another knockdown very quickly, and he does get him off the Poochills. One more headshot. Can he get the knockdown? Still using that smoke for cover, but no, it's Flash. But Daytrade Gaming, who secures the victory, does not allow the 1v3 for Buriram United. And they come away with the chicken dinner to start day number 4.
Yeah, I feel like that should have been a Buriram win right there. Even on the end when it was a 1v3, Edie had that central position with the crate. He could have waited for the last player of Daytrade to push out of cover, but he got a little bit too ambitious. He hit his shots previously and he was keen on the third, but it just wasn't meant to be as Daytrade turned the tides and brought home the win.
Exactly right. I mean, we almost saw a repeat of what happened yesterday in a 1v3 win for Buriram United, courtesy of Edie. Almost happens again. Daytrade really, though, from that position for the entirety of the game, you thought that they would come out with the win. It almost didn't go that way, though, based on, of course, the way the circle sort of works. And really, it's just like one little house building. It's not like they've got a whole lot of cover on the outside of that. And it looked like Buriram were going to kind of trap them in there, but in my opinion, they just focused too much on Fury. They were too concerned about Fury, and by drawing their attention to Fury, that allowed Daytrade to find a few knocks and get involved.
Yeah, that's right. And Buriram put themselves in some beautiful positions, but all it took was that one nade to flush the player out from behind the tree, and it just shifted the focus entirely. Daytrade were able to start getting pick after pick, and all of a sudden we're in a 3v1. And we know who came out on top.
Yeah, exactly right. Daytrade, 16 points from that game. They only had the one kill going into the final top 3 scenario, so it was definitely right in that regard. But of course, ended up picking 5 kills in that top 3 scenario to clinch a 16-point game. 13 for Buriram United, 12 for Battle Arena Elites. But just continuing to go down the list there, Divine Esports, 7 points. Despite the fact that they went out so early, no placement points, the amount of kills that this team has now as a total over the 13 games is ridiculous. It's been their secret weapon, Edge, here for PCS2 APAC. They've got like an extra 30-something kills over second place. That right now is the difference on the scoreboard.
Absolutely. They don't even need to get placement points for the rest of these games. If they keep on getting good kills, they'll be absolutely laughing, as they're still a good 40 points above the rest of the competition.
Sorry, I was wrong. Not 30 kills. It's 25 kills. Close still,
enough.
Regardless. That's still, especially in PUBG, because if you take out Divine and then you look at Buriram, a 25-point differential is down to 8. So 1 to 2 is the equivalent of 2 to 8. That's how big it is.
And if you take away their 4 chicken dinners, that puts Divine on 103 points, so that would still put them in second, and that would be only 13 placement points. So that just shows how hard Divine has been fragging.
Have a look at the damage from the top 5 here for day 4, match 1 of PCS2 APAC, and very low numbers, very much a spread of damage in this game in particular. Typically, throughout the course of PCS2 APAC, first place, for instance, is usually around 1,000 damage. So that gives you a bit of an idea as to the spread of damage from this game in particular. And the points at the end that we saw in the match leaderboard kind of backs that up, Edge, as well. 16 points for first place, and then it kind of trickled down slightly as well for the teams just below that. So we look at the highlights, of course, going all the way back to the start. Kamal's with the M16 found a quick double onto the unsuspecting two members of MSC Theraton, and well, that basically cost them the game within the first 5 minutes. And Astra tried to pull up onto Divine Esports. They got taught a lesson.
Yeah, and that lesson was that don't mess with Divine. They're too strong right now. But Astra, they had a solid idea. If they were able to win that position, it puts them in a good spot to continue on the rest of the game, but they just didn't come out on top in this situation. And this is the story of everything, is Divine just keep on getting kills here, and no one's really stopping them.
Yeah, really, really well done with the drive-by execution from JN. Not only saves his team, but then that allows them to go on and get a few more kills from like 4 to 7 overall for the remainder of the game. Bay did some good things though in this game in particular. I called it out in the game. Of course, last night they only picked up 3 points over 4 games. They've done a lot better than that here in the first game of the night, and so at least gives them something that they can sort of build on for the remainder of the night as well. Miramar United, Fury, both just keep Divine honest. Fury 43 points behind Divine. And of course, Miramar in the 30s now. That's something. They're in the 30s with like, what, 11 games to go. So that's not impossible. We've seen, comebacks happen from that sort of margin.
Yeah, that's right. It's not over yet. And right there we see Daytrade, who are a team who got like extremely hard fed there. But when you get fed, you don't always win. And Daytrade had to fight very, very hard to get themselves that win in the end.
They didn't have to fight at the beginning of the game or even at the middle portion of the game, but as you said, towards the end, that's really when it matters, and they definitely had to fight for it there. That puts Daytrade into 6th place now, and seemingly we do have a bit of a top 6 versus everyone else. That's the case currently. Of course, things can change pretty quickly. Bay into the top 4, tied with Division X, so they've kind of bounced back from their drop-off last night in the first game. And of course, Fury, Miramar still just hot on the heels of Divine, unfortunately. And here's interesting thing as well. We ended last night, Miramar finished 2nd, Fury 3rd. We start tonight 2nd, 3rd. And in the game last night, Divine had a 5th place finish with 5 kills, so which was like 8 points. They picked up 7 points here. So it's this that just keeps happening in games that Divine don't do well. Edge, they're still picking up points, 7, 8 points here or there. You take those points out, and suddenly then Miramar and Fury are a hell of a lot closer.
Yeah, that's right. But this is exactly how you need to play if you're Divine. If you're not getting those kills, you're just letting teams get too close. And, what more can you do? You just need to get anything you possibly can at this point.
The last game that Divine had less than 4 kills. So 4 kills, 3 or less was round 7, where they finished 11th with 0 kills. Prior to that was round 3. So since round 3, they've only had 2 games where they've had 3 or less kills. Ridiculous. They've just been on a tear kill-wise. And then you add in 4 chicken dinners so far over 13 games played. And they even had a 2nd place and a 4th place. Outside of that, everything I didn't name, which was almost about half their games, was non-placement point territory. So up and down in terms of the placement points, but the kills just always on point for them. Divine looking good, looking really, really good. Fury looking really good. You really do just kind of want to see, though, a little bit more from these teams, because you kind of expect a little bit more, knowing full well, Edge, that Divine are just going to keep getting their points.
Yeah, and it's really getting to the point where it's not even a fight for first. It's realistically going to come down to a fight between 2nd, between your 4th. These teams might be looking at it that Divine's maybe too hard to catch up to now, so they've just got to work on getting themselves above the next person. Like Fury getting above Miramar holding that 2nd, or even Bay coming up to that 2nd position. Is it a little bit too far, or what are we thinking at the moment?
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see on the other side of the break. We shall see if it gets a little bit closer. We've got one more game of Erangel to come very shortly. Day Trade Gaming were the victors for our first game of the night. We get to game two very shortly, of course. Erangel will be coming up one more time after that. Then we will have two matches on Miramar, which, of course, then Edge would conclude week number 2. We're getting to the busy end already.
Yeah, that's right. We've already been past the halfway point, and it's looking as interesting as ever as we see our second and third place very close. Divine has that little bit of a lead, but we've still got a little bit of a way to go, and anyone can catch up given the right circumstances.
That's correct. Of course, though, in the previous game that we just saw, Miramar, Fury, Bay, all just keeping things honest for Divine. Hot on their heels, of course, but not too hot. They're still about 40 points behind. It's now 39 points for Miramar. So as I said before going to the break, they're in the 30s. It's a step. It's a small one, but maybe, just maybe, coming into game 2 of the night, Miramar can continue to chip away at that lead. Really, the best case for them would be ending tonight and having it be 30 or under, because really then with 8 games to go, that's more than manageable. Game 2 coming up right now. It's Erangel here for the night.
Yeah, and if you're Miramar, you really want to catch up with those points as much as you can. If you get an average on 10 points above Divine each night, you know, you're slowly gaining space, and you know, Divine's put themselves there for a reason. They've performed well, they've had those wins, and you know, anyone can put up the numbers to get there.
So game number 2, final game of Erangel tonight. All eyes, of course, will be on our leaders, Divine, who, despite the fact that they've got 9.3 points per map so far on Erangel throughout PCS2 APAC, in terms of the recent performances on Erangel, they've been leaving a lot of points on the table. Fortunately, as we discussed at the end of the last game, their kills are just so ridiculously high that it doesn't really matter that they are leaving placement points on the table behind them here on Erangel. The average kills, Sophia, 80, and so on, down the bottom there as well for Erangel specifically. Of course, 2 games of Miramar to then follow after this one. So if you're an Erangel team, now's the time to do it. Wow, Zoid's run over already. It's not been good for Zoid.
That's definitely not the start that you're looking for there. And that's one of the problems I feel with the Rozhok school area as a looting spot, is that you're constantly contesting for cars. And if you lose those contests, either you lose your life or you're just traveling in 1, maybe 2 vehicles. And that's not what you want in competitive PUBG.
Well, that's a very intriguing circle to close out Erangel for the night. 50-50 split between the mainland and Sosnovka Island. And really can go either side. Although I'd love to see sort of, you know, because we do get this circle very often, Edge, but how many times does it go to the mainland? How many times does it go to Sosnovka Island when it is this kind of very 50-50 split? Now, Juxie's still parachuting in. It's one of the longer ones that I've seen in a while here at this sort of level. He'll get picked up, but I do find it goes Sosnovka more than anything.
Yeah, it normally does go to Sosnovka here, and I'd say that the percentages are more in line with it coming over to the military island. But being PUBG, that RNG, yeah, it can do whatever the hell it likes. But for Fury, they are a bit lucky in that their chosen loot spot is Mill, so they don't have to cross the bridge late, as they did take the journey quite early to get across. And we see Divine as well taking the trip even earlier than most other teams to come over to the island.
Yeah, 100%. It's a bold strategy. Of course, Sosnovka Island, you know, technically it seems like the majority of the island's in, which it is. But when you consider the water play, right, and if you look at the water, obviously we haven't got the map on our screen here, but I can see it. It's kind of like a divider. It's like at that really 50-50 mark is the water. So if it does go north for phase 2, then the mainland will be the majority. Of course, we've seen at times as well, it can also go quite center in for phase 2, and it keeps that 50-50 split just for a little bit longer. But typically these are pretty comfortable to play as long as you obviously know how to play it. If you're going to play for a 2-2 split, understand your position, things like going to cliffs and going for the shortcut, I'm not a big fan of. That's usually like a last second thing. Turtle should get a kill here on the top pass. Yeah, I mean, that's just always going to be a free kill. And this is sort of the benefit as well as taking things like crossroads really early. Any teams that's going to try and cross over to Sosnovka Island, not only are you safe on this side of the zone, of course, if you're safe in the circle, you're on Sosnovka Island and you can cross back over to Milta pretty quickly. Masate just somehow staying alive, won't go over, but low and now going to the crossroads where Divine Esports are thoroughly set up. Turtle, you'd think, is about to get a second kill here.
Yeah, it's definitely not looking good for Kaiser Tuna's. Turtle hits the nuts shot onto Neza. Can he get the second one to Musate? But he does not connect. And I just want to say that grenade from Nefahor on the other side was absolutely insane to actually do that much damage. As we see the next set of bridge camping, XS trying to get a camp up onto Magic Gaming, but not able to connect enough shots here. And Magic Gaming may actually come in on the other side of the bridge to Fury, so out of one camp and potentially into the next.
I don't think Fury are as set up for the camp, though, especially compared to Divine and X Stadium. Magic Esports, in fact, will just subvert over to these compounds near the ocean side. Good little spot to take. The thing is, you sit in this position, and let's say phase 2 goes north. Obviously, you've got your vehicles, and you can go back over the bridge, but you're going to be going into a very congested area, towards Lighthouse and the fire station. Fury's going to be close there. X Stadium, for instance, as well. So really, for Magic Esports, they'll be hoping it does go to Sosnovka Island from that position. And then if it does go to Sosnovka Island, you kind of want to move from that spot anyway. So it's a pit stop really more than anything for phase 1.
Yeah, that's right. And you have put all of your eggs in a basket here. As we see Magic, even if it does come to the island, the chances are that they're going to have to be leaving their compound anyway. So it may be a win for now, but potentially later they might not get much out of it.
Everhall gets a kill for Bay to start things off. Defiant from the future. Division X Gaming around Milta Power. They're going to go look for a boat at those cliffs. We've seen Day Trade take a boat as well from Primorsk. For the most part, Ferry Pier has been left unlooted in terms of boats, so may still be one there for any stragglers coming in quite late as well. Insight, just seeing what he can find here out on the coastline. And still a couple of teams all the way up in Georgia, Paul. Victim Rise, you got MSC Theraton. They're going to be coming in very, very late here, which I think for these sort of circles, unless they get a north shift, anything towards Sosnovka Island, and they're going to get punished for it.
Yeah, that's right. And what we see Fury doing right now is they're actually chasing boats along the coastline. So boats are extremely weak, and Puchil's being the solo man in a boat right now, getting hunted by Fury. It's gonna be rough for him to come inland. And if Fury can pick up a kill or two on boat travelers, then that's an easy point to go towards their mission to get that first placement.
So a minute 40 seconds. We've seen a couple of deaths so far, 5 in fact. So has been slightly bloody to start things off. Not a surprise considering the circle, and you kind of expect that should follow suit into phase number 2 as well. Fury, of course, have got a lot of control on Sosnovka Island, but a shift up north, and then they're not going to be top dog no longer. But a shift down south, they can probably get whatever they really want. Of course, this compound for X Stadium, they've got a decent amount of space too, kind of right next to Fury as well. I'm not sure if Fury are completely aware of this. They are spread out along that cliff front of Sosnovka Island quite thoroughly. In terms of the teams on the mainland, Bury Ram United Trader still got Flash over at Primorsk. Norans Venotica moves over to Ferry Pier. God Home over at the Yellows on the Cliffs. Astra as well. As we have a look at this crate just floating in the ocean. Archangel Predator. Then you got Victim Rise, MSC Theraton, Bay from the future. So a lot of teams still on the mainland of Erangel. But the teams that have made their way to Sosnovka Island, they look like they've set up shop already, Edge, besides the likes of Magic Esports, who are kind of sending 2 out, Tonkay and Valax, because they understand their compound they're in really is not one for the rest of the game.
That's right. And Fury as well, they've just spread themselves all along the coastland. Bay has a really good entry into the military island if it does come over, and currently it's completely free. So Bay's got like a very good setup for what it is right now. But no matter what this circle does, it's going to send some teams into like a last ditch sort of attempt to cross the bridge either over to the military island or back north, and it does shift back
Oh,
north. So a lot of teams who put all of their eggs getting across onto this island
oh
have now got
man.
to come back, and this might be a big game for Astra, who's currently holding the north side bridge.
Well, that is a doozy of a circle. Is Paper Thin in there somewhere? I'm sure he is, because he usually brings the magic for these kind of circles over from PCS Asia. And Phase 2 has given us something really entertaining here. And for the teams on Sosnovka Island, Edge, they are going to be thoroughly disappointed with this, especially the likes of Divine, who were at Crossroads, could have easily done the double back over to the mainland, elected not to. They went for position, putting all their eggs into the Sosnovka Island basket, and that's just going to be really thrown away into the trash now, because you've got to quickly make your way back over. Astra's going to be waiting there as well. On the other side, Magic Esports, a team that's going to be waiting too, seeing what they can get. Sulubi's going to get knocked down, and they get a second one. Tried to run him over. That's going to be unsuccessful though, but Umamar's going to actually run out of ammunition. Jaken gets him. Sulubi does get Marcus though. It is just chaos on the bridge towards the lighthouse, and there's still like 4 teams that need to make their way over this bridge.
Yeah, and Divine is absolutely capitalizing on this right now. They see a potential to pick up those kills, and they're coming in hot and fast right now. So from Magic Esports, bridge camp has really backfired here. They sort of didn't commit their players to the bridge camp or getting off the bridge. The Seek Swap does come in, and potentially JN will clean up everyone here. So brilliant play by them, and now JN can just have a little bit of loot and then cross back over the bridge. As we actually see
JN
Diane
is
picks
just
up
the
Valix as
king
well.
of drive-bys. That's one way to clear the bridge. They did lose Turtle though, unfortunately for Divine, but such is Divine Esports, always just finding kills. But the middle of the bridge, no one's coming in from behind them though. Fury went into military base. What are they doing?
This is something that you see from Fury from time to time, is they'll just go and they'll re-loot. So because they know that the military island is out and people are going to try and rush to get it back across the bridge, they'll generally go back and loot for meds, for more ammo, just make sure that they're perfect on everything, and they'll come in late from the bridge and potentially take some fights to get off. And
Tom
Divine
K just got sat down by Diane with the seat swap. 7 kills for Divine. Man, they're not making us look silly, Edge, when we say that they are the king of getting kills.
Yeah, Divine, the king of seat swaps as well, apparently. Divine have just been able to pick up kill after kill, and it makes it virtually impossible at the moment for any teams to gain anything on them at the moment.
Well, 13 teams remain, and we are only still at phase number 2. 25 seconds until phase 3. Divine have cracked 150 points. The lead over second is back to 46. Buram, to their credit, haven't really done anything wrong this game. It's just the fact Divine are just a walking killing machine. And as you said, Fury looting over at military base in phase 2 have now made their way back. So they'll be coming in very late here, which may work. It may catch Divine off guard, but they've got a bit of a distance until that next circle. Buram copping a feed. Victim Rise, they can have a compound inside the circle as well as Archangel Predator. Astra in a pretty good spot. Unfortunately, they are without Zoid though. And the teams that are, at least in my eyes, around the yellows and the cliffs and towards like MSC Bay, not sure if I like those sort of positions. Very open fields coming in towards the edge. Feel like you're just going to be a sitting duck towards the late game. Whereas Day Trade at Ferry Pier, you can make your way out of there. Buram's good spot. Astra can move into that woods area, and you can kind of play from that spot too.
Yeah, and generally from this circle here, you'll normally see it come, a lot of the time, come to the south. And you have a lot of sort of field players playing those huts and whatnot, but you actually have on the South Hill a lot more playability with the new trenches and an artillery sort of setup that's been put on that hill. And what we'll actually see shortly is every team like Divine, who was on the other side of the bridge, has now left. So this gives Fury free access into the zone here, and this is exactly why they go back in and they re-loot. It just gives them that little bit of timing and some space to come in.
Smart call, Edge, from not only yourself, but of course from Fury. It's going to work out. They are just sort of weaving side to side a bit as well, just in case there's any oncoming shots. That's not going to be the case. They can push into Ferry Pier and then from there can actually push upwards as well. Of course, all of the water practically out. There's just the bay in Ferry Pier that's still in. Diane, they're even just seat swapping when they pull up to the shack. They're just that alpha. They're going to sit as a 3-man. The job's done, really. Like, I'm not usually a fan of this, sending 3+ people into a shack in phase 3, but considering they've got 7 kills already, they're coming in quite late because they were one of the teams on Sosnovka Island, and they're in a really good spot to get fed. This is like, I'm saying this is more than for Divine to do this right now.
I'm just so confused by 3 teams sending 3 players into the huts in the field. They're committing literally everything into these huts. And
yeah,
sure, they'll get 1 circle. They should 100% be guaranteed in the next circle. But after that, if it leaves, you've got nothing. You're in an open field. You've got a couple of hay bales and just nothing else to play. Astra, who had probably pole position on that South Hill, gave it up just to sit in a hut for another 10 minutes.
Of course, a lot of this is dependent on the shift for phase 4, because if it does go south, those teams in the fields will lose their shacks. They will lose what position they have, but any sort of feed towards like Victim Rise and Divine makes it so difficult for teams like Fury, Daytrade, the teams that are on the edge on the south portion of this circle. Phase 4, and it will be that said feed for Victim Rise, Divine from the future, Astra. These teams that have elected to go for the shacks in the fields will get their just rewards. Victim Rise have got more than a shack, though. They've got a slight small compound there, so they're going to have all 4 people in that compound. Buram will still be in, but now Edge, if you're Fury, Daytrade, even Bay to a degree, MSC, KT, so many teams not equal. And as we saw before, phase 3 had already ran out of spot. Now into phase 4, it's shrunk even more.
Yeah, and I mean, for the teams like Divine from the future and Astra, like the gamble's paid off, and now you see Fury and Cerberus, who are probably about to fight on the edge of zone for that southern hill control. It gets them something for now, but then later, chances are they've just got to move into that field that has every single playable object currently occupied.
So it has slowed down over the last couple of minutes after what was one of the more chaotic phase 2s that you'll see in a while. No kills yet for Fury. Been an intriguing game from them so far, coming from Sosnovka Island. Now it just kind of feels like your basic Southern Gatka field game compared to where we started with phase 1. How quickly things can change in terms of what the circle dictates where everyone goes. It's like we've done almost the world tour tonight on Erangel. You're trying to see what they can find, and well, they're going to be, without realizing it, looking at a lot of teams. When they do look into that field, they're all just in shacks. There's nothing you can really do. They have to focus on the teams close by to them. Cerberus and Archangel Predator. Cerberus in the woods and Archangel Predator in the compound. That's really the task at hand now for Fury. It feels like this game. Try and find some kills. Wipe out these 2 teams. Get 8 kills. That's the goal here.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like Fury's going for that play. Yeah, they've looked at a hut and they didn't see any cars around it, so they're going to be breaching from the future here. And this is going to get messy, as you can be seen from absolutely everywhere up here. Jukesy takes down TD with the buggy, and White comes in to try and clean up another. Fury's not really getting favoured right now, as they've all been knocked out, and it's only Ronan left to come in, and he's still in his UAZ. So I don't think anyone's won in this situation. Ronan needs to get in and revive Jukesy, and they actually will get control of the hut. But that was extremely sloppy.
You just see Ronan doing like a donut in the middle of the field. Finally makes it in. That was messy. Really, really messy. But I do wonder, you called it. They didn't see any vehicles at that shack. And suspecting that it was going to be open for the taking, maybe just surprised slightly. But, I mean, a win's a win, right? Like, they can get fed from that position. They'll have 2 players remaining. They've cracked 100 points, and that's going to be a lesson for Venotica why you should never stand still, especially in this sort of lobby. Edie's going to teach him that lesson. Buram did lose Canaxi at some point earlier on, so they've only got the 3 players, but now a perfect opportunity and primed to push on to Daytrade Gaming. Sophia from the other side with a knockdown onto Norins. Daytrade are down to like 2 players standing from 4 in just like 10 seconds.
Yeah, Buran's seen this opportunity to push out of their compound and potentially get some kills here. And Bay's doing exactly the same thing. They've smelt blood in the water and they're just making that push right now. Buran, quite lucky that they can fall back to their compound, but the circle does not favor them in one bit, as Bay will have full control of this hill and potentially be able to farm Buran as they try and entry into the next zone.
Phase 5. Still the focus with Victim Rise, Divine, of course, 3 players in the shack. Division X Gaming up north, Astra in a shack, Fury in a shack, and Bay will be able to play from this hill. It technically is inside of the circle, so it's fine for now. And then I think the next stop for them, probably for phase 6 edge, will be Victim Rise's compound.
Yeah, Bay here will probably try and keep as many cars up as they possibly can, because chances are either they go for that breach onto Victim Rise or they're going to be playing car forts in the middle of the field. And it does look like there's going to be a lot of teams that are looking for that option as well, with the highest % chance of it just going central and VTR getting that feed and the rest of the field sort of being farmed. So it really comes up to this next zone to how many to how teams.
Oh, here we go! Here we go! Here we go! Juxie's got 3. What?
I'm confused.
What just happened? Smell Hisaki just got both of them, but Juxie got what, 2? I'm so confused right now. I felt like the kill feed just lied to me.
Yeah, I think Juxie got 1 in the flush, and then the car just backflipped in front of 2 players. So, pretty lucky there from Cerberus not to lose players from that car explosion, but a very interesting fight over the same hut that we've seen fought over before.
Well, Fury are gone. 102 points for them. They will remain there. And it does just give a small target as well for Bay, Division X. Whether or not they can look to jump in through the top 3. Astra on the move, 3 players in a Dacia. Usually it doesn't end well, but Lynxy got an early knockdown. The drive-by is perfected for Astra as well, learning from Divine. Everyone's taking from Divine this game. And the lessons there with the drive-bys. Chibrit with a knockdown, and Lynxy's gone. So is Buram United. Faltered too. The gap to Divine is going to further increase this game. It's going to probably go back into the 50-plus point margin. The short reprieve where one team got back into the 30s was 39, but albeit, now it's going to blow right back out. It's been the theme over the last sort of 6 to 8 games, Edge, where teams just, every time they kind of close the gap, it just blows back out. And Divine are loving this game right now. They are, though, not loving this circle for phase 6. They are finally out of it. Only Victim Rise, really well placed.
Yeah, and Divine probably doesn't have any tires left on their cars now, so it's going to be extremely difficult for them to play into this field. But I'm a little bit confused on Astra's movement there. They did leave a hut that was currently in the zone. They must have seen it as an opportunity to take that breach, as we see MSE looking to take the same breach on towards Astra's last player, Extreme here. Extreme absolutely taken out of the server by the vehicle.
He didn't even move. He accepted his fate. 3 vehicles driving towards him, and he did not move. Oh! Flood, though, gets both Rossiter Jr. and Vega God. He could have got all 3. Bigoshi Mimburi moved away to the behind the other Dacia, the one that didn't blow up, just to heal up. Nade towards Neferhort. No, I think that's going to fall well short of the mark. 5 kills for Battle Arena Elites. They now have an opportunity to potentially get into the top 3. Naf gets 1 along with Loki. Says Long K, the last one alive for Division X. Archangel, Predator, Gorma into the top 6. Flood gets Neil. Nice nade, though, from Long K onto Flood. Neferhor, can he come up clutch? No, he cannot. He's eliminated by Yoshi Minburi. of MSC Theraton, and Bay will bow out in 6th position. We're into the final 5 teams remaining: Divine, Division X, MSC, Victim Rise, and Cerberus. Big game potentially on the cards for Cerberus. You finish strong here, Edge, and they can get that 10th spot.
Yeah, and I swear we just had half of the server knocked out for a moment there, as every possible fight broke out all at the same time, and we're left with Divine making their way into the circle. So they were able to get in, but they really don't have too much to play with. Diane taking some shots towards Cerberus. Cerberus getting peppered as well by VTR. Chibrit taking out Subang. So it's not looking good here for all of our field teams, as VTR has big control right now on the zone.
Divine have had 7 kills for 14 minutes, basically. They got them all at the very early proceedings of this game before the end of phase 2. Since then, they sent all 3 members that did remain into that shack, which is no longer in, of course. Diane knocked down by Niall of Division X Gaming, who have got 4 kills. MSC Theraton sitting in 8th position. By the way, Cerberus going out there means they cannot get into the top 10 this game. Astra just holding on in that top 10, sitting in 10th position right now. But with Bay going out in the style that they did as well, this has opened the door for Division X Gaming. And their chances of getting into the top 3 exponentially increased here because of the position they've got. They've got to, of course, still take out MSC Theraton. From after that, Victim Rise are the ones in the box seat this game.
Yeah, and realistically, Victim Rise should be able to push their way into the top 5 off this circle. They've got a lot of favor here, and they can generally oversee all of the field. So the only team who can really contest them right now is DXG, who control the hill. And VTR's realistically going to get the following circle after this as well, or have a high percentage of their compound in. So it's going to be a rough journey for MSC and VTR, with everyone else just watching them, as JN will be throwing away his life in the blue zone to deny the points. They've got the top 4 placements, so they're very happy with this game. They can extend their lead even more.
Well, this feels like the battle for second now between Division X and MSC, and Division X are going to have the advantage from their position. And MSC have already been through a lot this game too. Probably not much utility really available, and kind of never would have backed them in to win this sort of fight. Division X, really the worst thing that could go wrong for them here is if Victim Rise can get the third party. Now, Victim Rise are just starting to send a few people out. Genfos going towards this hill that Division X Gaming are on, so they're just going to try and get a bit of a position here, go for the third party. MBK gets the knockdown onto Yoshi Mimburi. Neil gets revived. Long K is going to be able to heal up as well, but Genfos creeping around, and now the other members of Victim Rise, you just see they're out the right-hand side of the screen, creeping out of their compound, wanting to get involved, try and find a few kills. Long K now has got Vega God confirmed. Rosset Jr. eliminated by the native Genfos. There's the third party as Long K and MBK send Yoshi and Yanku to the grave. Now they have to deal with Victim Rise, who have pushed up. Victim Rise have given away their compound here. If you get the knockdowns of Chibra and Samoy, you're going to have the numbers advantage. Fortunately, though, Genfos is able to get one knockdown early on. Flash grenade not going to be effective at all. Genfos has a second one on the tree after pushing out of the compound. They were the aggressors here in this fight, and at least backing themselves in. Burger's got one. But unfortunately, now they are only down to 1. It's only MBK. Not going to count him out, though, just yet. Now, there is 2 players knocked. Now, Genfos subsequently eliminated Kamal Samoy in a 1 versus 2. 9 kills for Victim Rise, as NBK will heal up and go for one last try at this. It will be a 1v3 because Chibret is getting revived.
Yeah, it's a good play here by VTR to push out of their compound and extend their circle control right now. Realistically here, NBK should have no chance of getting into the next circle, as Camels has put some shots down. NBK very low and will just run into the zone to deny that point. So very good game there by Divergent Gaming. They've put themselves in a real fighting spot to contest Fury and Buran for that second spot right now.
Well, Victim Rise, the team from Indonesia, will pick up their first chicken dinner, I believe, of the tournament. So that's going to help their chances in shooting back up the rankings. They haven't had the most amazing tournament They were sitting in 9th position coming into this game. And with that win, it will skyrocket them up into 6th place. And strangely enough, Edge, they've gone about it quietly, 15 points behind second. They're in the race for second, third, for instance. Like obviously a lot of other teams, but like a lot of other teams, it does feel like they're out of the race for first place. And as I said, that feels like the way it is going for a lot of teams now. 10 games to go, and Divine's basically got a 50+ lead on everyone else.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's at that point where Divine is really way too hard for teams to catch. And it does just become that battle for second, battle for third. As we see 5 teams in the running for second, like that's only one average game away from putting themselves above Buran potentially. So, you know, it may not be interesting for that first spot, but that second spot is definitely going to be interesting. And the APAC region always likes to keep it interesting.
It does, but we are noticing, I guess, a trend throughout the year in 2020. The APAC region does love themselves a runaway leader. It was Q Confirm in PCS1. It's now Divine in PCS2. There's the match leaderboard, though, from this particular game for day 4. Of course, we are now finished with Erangel. 20 points gained for Victim Rise, and that's always nice to see the good old 10-10 put together. Division X Gaming, 14 points. Certainly feels like they've awoken from a 3-game slumber. And Cerberus Esports having one of their better games, but they're just so far behind everyone else. Top 10 certainly can be on the cards for them, but I'd count them out of the top 5 chances. MSC Theraton just sort of keep knocking on the door, and what's been sort of improved form for them over the last 4 games now. Second, first, and third, 3 out of their 4 games. Battle Arena Elites continue to have a much better night tonight than they did last night. Sitting in 5th position, 94 points, but 4 teams now have cracked the triple digits. Division X, Fury, and BRM joining Divine Esports. Divine have almost cracked triple digits on kills alone, though.
Yeah, that's right. 3 points away from those triple digits, and we're getting into the Miramar. Divine's had a pretty good run on Miramar so far. I mean, they've had a good run on both maps, but their Miramar seems to be quite good, where they can easily put themselves in a game-winning position and carry themselves away with a heap of frags.
Damage dealers for match number 2. Flood leading the way, 883. But then a massive drop-off. Genforce, Gibber at 500 apiece for second and third. Which again sort of has not really been the trend throughout PCS2, where, well, we had usually first is about 1,000 damage, and then second's about 700 or so. So again, another pretty spread game. Was a crazy game though altogether for our final game of Erangel of the night. Of course, we sort of started off with that 50-50 circle split. Does it go military? Does it go the mainland? I believe I saw a tweet from Fury saying they haven't had a single military circle since like the charity showdown. They didn't get one for PCS1. They didn't get one so far for PCS2. It feels like that one was a bait for them, because then, of course, for phase 2, it shifted up north, and it's, well, basically caused this logjam on the bridge.
Yeah, and Fury's a team who, as we saw, they are very smart, very tactical, and they came in expecting no one to be at this hut, and it just did not work out. They put themselves across the bridge scot-free, but then this hut was just their downfall.
It was, unfortunately, their downfall. Yeah, so actually, when I said the kill feed lied, it was because Jukesy knocked down Ronan. So he got a team kill in there, because I looked at the kill feed and saw 3 Jukesy kills. One of them was a knock plus finish, and of course the other was his own teammate. That was Extreme just accepting his fate. He was always going to just get run over there. And Flood, very shortly after that, was able to get a nice double, but it was short-lived for Bay. They got quickly swept aside. Division X did nice from the high ground against MSC Theraton, and then well played from Victim Rise to close it out, coming out of the compound and looking to find a few kills themselves.
Yeah, Victim Rise had potential there to not pick up many kills and stay in their compound, but they got extremely aggressive, knowing that they could run out for free pretty much and come third party that fight. So they picked up some much needed points for themselves and put themselves in a pretty good position coming into the rest of these games.
Yeah, well, certainly. And as I said, gives them a massive boost going for top 2, top 3, for instance, which It kind of feels like, not for all teams, you know, the bottom four, bottom five, probably very unlikely, but a lot of the teams from 10 plus can still very much get second, third, fourth, and fifth, for instance. But first place, it's going to be really tough to catch up against Divine. And now, especially since after the break, we're going to be heading over to Miramar, and boy, do Divine like Miramar. Two more games remain so far for tonight, day 4 of PCS2 APAC. Of course, it's going to be Miramar, where we will be heading. And as I said before the break, it seems to be the home of Divine Esports. So if they've been tracking well tonight on Erangel, expect them to explode here even more so on Miramar, which if it does happen, Edge, of course, there's only 8 games to go next weekend. If they can finish off the night in a huge fashion and increase this lead beyond 50, I'd say it's over.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a make or break point for Divine, but it's a make or break point for every other team on how Divine performs tonight on Miramar. If Divine seem to come out and get 0 points, it's a sign to other teams that, you know, step up here and potentially you can get it back to a gainable position.
Yeah, I've got to say though, throughout this entire season of PCS2 APAC, it's been, you know, catch up for the likes of Miramar, Fury, Bay, Division X. But every time they do well enough to catch up, they're not gaining much. You know, second place 2 games in a row for Miramar, and in those games, as we mentioned, Divine 7 and 8 points. They're still getting something from it, even if they faltered a little bit. And then in that last game, 7 kills inside the first 2 phases, and then finishing 4th. Perfect game, really, from Divine to close out Erangel for the weekend. And as I mentioned, then going into Miramar, it just seems to be the map that suits their playstyle even further. And if they can expand on that and they end up with really good games, as I said, you finish off the night 60 plus points with 8 games to go. I'm happy to call it there.
Yeah, that's right. It's currently a 1-horse race at the moment, but the real race is happening outside of the top 1 position. It's between our 2nd to 6th place. It's so close that anyone can sort of just have that average game, can pick it up, can get back into it, and it's not even a struggle for most teams.
Well, it's do or die time for, as you coined, every other team besides Divine. It's time to get going here. We've got what is now technically 10 games remaining, including this one. I want to take us back though to the first weekend where Battle Arena Elites finished off with a 17 kill win, and then the next game after that they had a 7 kill second place performance, 40 points in 2 games. Now if Divine stumble, and we'll let you know what, we'll even give them 5 points over 2 games. We'll go 6 points over 2 games to get them to 160. How's that, Edge? But if Buram can replicate a Bay and get 40 points, then you're only looking at like a 14-point gap or so. That's crazy to think about. Now, unfortunately for Buram, now it's going to be very, very difficult. Fortunately for Divine, it's also very unlikely that's going to have to happen. But that, I think what I'm trying to get at is it shows you what sort of needs to happen from here on out. You're going to need a Bay-like performance. You're going to need 40 points from 2 games. And you almost don't want that sort of pressure on yourself as a team. And the other thing is Buram has shown that they are a team of consistency, not a team that goes out and gets 17 kills in a win.
Yeah, that's right. You know, it's definitely plausible, but it is, in a game like PUBG, it is so hard to have those 2 wins in a row, you know, 3 wins in a row to put yourself up there. Divine did it over the 2 separate days, but like that's just an outlier. It is so difficult to replicate that, and that's why it makes it so interesting here, is that it's going to be so hard for anyone to really catch up. It's possible, but very, very unlikely.
Of course, they are going to be the focus while they are still in second place. And the same goes, of course, not just for Buram, but also for the likes of Fury, Division X, maybe even to a degree Bay. I mean, Bay's now 60 points behind Divine Esports. That's a huge, huge tally to now try and come back from with 10 games to go. You're going to need a hefty amount of points. You can't even say an average of 6 points a game, because all that would mean is you would have to hope Divine get nothing for 10 games. That's obviously not going to happen. You kind of, with 10 games to go, you kind of need to say, let's say Divine get 50 points. That's an average of 5 per game, which is along the path that they have had throughout this season. But that would just sort of be minus any of their massive performances. So 200 205 points is then sort of your figure point in 10 games, which would mean if you're Bay doing quick maths, that's like an average of 10 or 11 points a game, an average edge.
Yeah, that's a big outlier to have there as well. Getting 10 points a game is well below, well above your average high tier team scoring. So for Bay to like make up those points would have to be absolutely amazing.
And that's obviously not just for Bay, but that goes along with Division X for Biram. I mean, maybe instead of 10 for Biram, it's something like 8 or 9. Probably more like a 9, I guess. But it happened. It's PUBG. I'm going to say that when we look at these games. And while anything can happen, usually the norm happens, right? Usually you're just going to see Divine come away with the win here. And look, I'd love to see this get down to the wire towards the end and have this sort of comeback from a team. But no one really has stood out and said, you know what, they've flicked a switch and they look like the new Divine and they are, you know, the Divine of the last 8 or so games. No one has given me that indication, and that's what makes it really hard for these predictions. Biram up and down, Fury up and down, Division X thoroughly up and down, and Bay have been more down than anything over the last couple of days. So it makes it hard to sort of predict someone to catch them.
For sure, and to put this into perspective as well, the infographic that we saw come up before that showed Divine's average Miramar game was something like 12.4 points, which is ridiculously high, and Bay was sitting on the lowest at 2.4 points, while their Erangel was something like 10 points. So, you know, Divine has had good averages over both maps, whereas the likes of Bay has had, you know, iffy games to say the least.
Certainly agree with you. Of course, Miramar, and it's all its glory, usually is quite slow going, and I think this is actually the first time tonight. Of course, it's only game 3, but within we've gone past 5 minutes and everyone's still alive. Edge. That is in fact the first time tonight. So I think that's just Miramar in a nutshell, though.
It definitely is, and we did see Astra take that high risk, high reward breach onto the little shanty below the compound. Camels was occupying it by himself, but Astra has decided that compound is one worth risking your life to take, and they have secured that. Camels was backing out of that and is kind of in no man's land right now, so there's not much for him to do, and Astra's clearing out the compound, just making sure he's not sitting in a corner waiting to get that one and done kill.
All eyes on Divine, though. All these scenarios we talk about, all these hypotheticals, a lot of it all just comes down to them also performing worse than the way they have been. And even then, I still have, because I can't see them performing too badly, I've still at least got them averaging 5+ in these scenarios just to try and make them a little bit more realistic. But even then, let's be real, the way they're playing, I kind of expect them to finish around 235 points. That would just be my prediction, as Levi's has spotted out Kamal's. They just can't be stopped, and they are 3 kills away from 100 kills. You could take away all their placement points, and they are still in the top 5. That's just... They're only like a couple kills away from having more kill points than everyone else has points.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about this situation here is Genfos is actually going for the revive on his teammate in between both Astra and Divine, so really putting their life at risk right now to keep Camels up. He has had some big highlights for VTR here, but I'm not sure it's sort of worth risking your life to, or risking another player's life to potentially have a 4-man lineup. But it does work out in this situation, and we see an interesting play by VTR, flipping their card right in front of Levi's. Levi's getting 1, but Chibrit trading that out. So this could have been a good start for Divine, but it's very quickly turned around and losing 1 player in Levi's already.
They do lose Levi's, but you can still back them in from here because of the fact they're at Monte Nuevo, which is the center of this phase 1 circle, and we know they're more than happy to have kills, but they're going to push on this. And I don't blame it. When you're 50 points clear of second place, you can do weird things. You can take these fights. That nade was perfect. The old 1.0 nade, he would have been down. 2.0 nade, and he stays alive. Nades are funny nowadays.
No, definitely interesting. And previous to before the last nade patches, they would knock you 5 meters and you'd fall to your death. So we've seen some good changes for nades right now as Astra picking up their first kill of the game onto Simoy from VTR. So good start for Astra. They've put themselves in an advantageous position on this ridge line to pick up that 1 point. And that's going to be a good one going into their tally for the rest of this game.
28 seconds until phase 2. And Miramar United very much on the edge of the circle right now, just north of the graveyard position, close to Hacienda. Got Meow, Edie around there. They're kind of surrounded by Magic Esports as well. So we switch over to Ronin and Fury. South side towards Jumasera, just in behind Day Trade Gaming, who have picked things up tonight. We'll give them the credit there. They were about 69 points or so coming into tonight. They've now gotten up to 86. So they've just been trucking along. It hasn't been great for them since basically day one. So it's going to be eliminated by Yoshi Mbiri as the old compound that Astra were in, except for Zoid, who was still in there, just gets breached by MSC Theraton. Not sure exactly the call there. Not going to really comment on that because I don't know, but I would have thought that Zoid would have been on the move with everyone else. I guess holding that spot just in case it stayed more centered to them or went up north. But because, of course, the south shift, everyone else was ready to get on the move. And speaking of the move, Bay's going to get moving from Monte Nuevo, and I suspect Divine should follow suit very shortly.
Yeah, and that's the risk versus reward play there from Astra. They took the risk on having the one person in the compound and the 3 up on the hill, and it didn't pay off. So even though they lost the shift, they lost a player as well. So definitely worst case scenario after they did pick up that 1 kill.
Teams, 60 alive at the 10-minute mark, which is nice to see. Means everyone has still got a good chance here at this first Miramar game of the night. Match 3 of day 4. Miramar United, do they change things up over the last 10 games, Edge? Do they look for kills more? Do they change their play style? Or do they say, you know what, if we're not going to finish first, at least second's pretty good?
I think so far, generally, we've seen Buran be pretty methodical on the edge play so far, but realistically, I don't know what they need to change up. They can play a bit more aggressive and go for more kills, but all you're doing is putting your life at risk. And being an edge team, you can't really risk that because you want to have 4 players alive as much as possible for when you go for those team fights. And a lot of edge teams are realistically only sort of fully confident when they've got those 4 players. As soon as you lose one, it changes your entire game plan.
So Jumasera going to be a focus this game, you would think, although it is a bit more on the south end. It's an interesting part of Miramar, this spot around Picado, Monte Nuevo, Jumasera. It's kind of like the Holy Trinity, right? You've got these 3 medium-sized towns, nothing like Los Leones, for instance, and not even like El Pozo, for instance, either, or Al Azhar, but sort of in between the middle of these, where we've got a lot of teams already situated, is quite a rocky terrain, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of slopes, and there's a couple of hills. Like you've got this like kind of not a crater, but the hills around the south end of Power Grid, which is kind of where Game Home are right now, and then also towards La Drilia as well. Chuacera is also highly elevated, so if you go too early in the middle, you could get spotted, and well, that's just the nature of Miramar, I guess, as a whole. But it's always that age-old question: do you come in slow or do you go for a center position? If you can get a center position with cover, oh, that's really all you want more than anything here.
Definitely, and Miramar's good in the way that you have so much playable terrain. So even if every single compound around you is taken, and depending on your map knowledge, you can always, well, I say always, but most of the time you can put yourself in a really good position that's maybe not a compound, but you've got that playability of hills and defilades around you that you can definitely work off.
Pucciel's getting bridged by MSC Theraton under our nade. It's the only one he's got. Fortunately, has a bit of help from Norins higher up above from behind, and Venonica's coming in as well for reinforcements. So MSC Theraton won the 4v1 against Zoid, but they're not going to win the 4v1 against Pucciel's, and that one is not even no longer a 4v1 anyway. Pucciel's does get Vega God, who actually got eliminated by his teammate in Yanku to walk, who's really just trying to hit by spray onto Pucciel's, does get him down, but MSC are going to be sent packing in last place. They only picked up 2 or 3 kills in this game, and now they've been sent out. Stuck on 83 points in 8th position. Look at that standing though. Look at Astra, 69 points edge. They have just fallen away so dramatically.
Yeah, Astra seems to be a bit all or nothing at the moment, and they're sort of leaning towards the nothing. They've had one good game on the, was it the second night, where they got like a 17 kill second, and that's pretty much carried them till this point. So Astra's really going to need to sort of pull their pants up and get to work if they want to really be a threat for these mid-pack teams.
If you took out that one game, they'd be third last. And they're a good side. It's just, again, not really working for them. They've still got 3 players up in this game, though, but losing Zoid to MSC Theraton certainly wouldn't have helped. Division X Gaming in between 2 teams there, Bay, KT. Bay on one side, and again, really, when you look at Division X position, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they're in this little crater. On both sides of them are 2 teams that are in an elevated position. Unless they get a complete hard feed here for the remainder of the game, how do you even get out of here with all 4 players intact?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. It's extremely hard to keep your tires on your vehicles as well. So it's going to be a struggle for them to get out, and especially pushing up the hill on foot. If you've got anyone on the lips of that sort of crater surrounding it, it gets extremely difficult. And the only way you can sort of press up is by fighting your way out, or just finding some sort of a gap. But again, it gets extremely difficult to push out.
Just want you to look at the map for me, Edge, here, and look at Miramar United, because this is just, it's what they do. They play Edge, and there's the map actually for us. They play Edge. Look at the way they're positioned right now, spread out. Like, when you say that a team plays Edge, that's what you kind of imagine, and they do that to perfection. But what do you do here? Do you take the fight with Cerberus? Obviously, you're going to have to wait for this circle for phase 4. And then I want you to tell me what you would do if you're in their position, especially with a circle like that.
I mean, if you're in their position now, it's kind of just like die. But Buran, and as we see, Nordra just gets a knock onto Subang. So right now is where you try and capitalize. You've got that knock. Do you go for the breach? Do you breach Cerberus? Go for those 3-4 kills and then potentially move into the next zone. It gets extremely difficult for you to try and do anything but that. And it does look like Nordra is going for the breach onto the compound.
Buram going to send it into Cerberus. Called that one right. They're going to just take the target that is closest in front of them. Buys them a bit of time as well. The blue zone just moves them further away from that. Got Godmeow, Canaxi anchoring back, as well as Edie. So it's really only Nordra that's gone up close here, looking to find a knock or 2. The others, of course, will come for reinforcements soon. Does still have the buggy. Can drive by now and try and just get out of there. Isaki's low and is getting damaged and now knocked down by Godmeow. And so far, this has been perfectly executed from Buram. It's like a hit and run tactic. They went in, faked that they were going to fight, and now that's given them the freedom to actually rotate past Cerberus without losing any members.
Yeah, and what may not have been spotted right there is that Buran pulled out the extra player from Cerberus and have now taken their compound. So because they've moved, they've literally leapfrogged the other team and also got a kill onto Basil as well. So that's absolutely brilliant from Buran. That's best case scenario right now.
Astro going to find a kill onto game home. Pios's Musate going to be knocked down by Jukesy. That Molotov will do the rest of the job. Godmeow, nade in hand, pushing up closer. Is he going to spot Subang very close by? I think Cerberus are out here, and they are. Godmeow finds kill number 4 for Buram United, and as I said before, executed that all perfectly on the edge of the circle out to the east. Minute and a half till phase 5. Insight just roaming around on top of the hill. Fury getting that knocked down. It hasn't been the clinic that they would have liked, but there's still time for them, especially in this We talk about teams that can do well on Miramar. Fury is one.
Yeah, Fury is definitely one of them, and this is exactly how Fury love to play. They like to be split. They like to be taking those single 1v1 fights and just showing how individually strong they are. And KT Gaming has just fallen straight into that, as they've lost 2 players to Fury right now, and Fury doesn't even look worried. They didn't look like they needed to group up to take the fights. They just stayed split and had confidence in one another to just win everything they went for.
On the move, though, for Miramar United. This is sort of the rotation I thought they would make earlier, but they made the final play of least taking out Cerberus first. Unfortunately, though, they've gone straight into Astra. Extreme with the initial knockdown onto God. Now, they've still got numbers here. It's like a 3v3 situation between themselves and Astra. Never mind, Astra actually only down to 2. They're going to get Molotov as well out of that shack. And as they literally come out, they are just going to meet their end so quickly. Miramar are up to 6, but they're also down to just 1 player left. It's Edie. Does still have a chance to potentially get Nordra back into the game, but of course has to deal with this immediate threat first, which is Game Home. There's 2 players right in front of him, but he's not going to save the day this time. Something else with a quick headshot. 3 kills for Game Home. That's going to be both Miramar and Astra subsequently eliminated.
Yeah, and Astra gets a little bit of a bonus there on being eliminated, with Nico getting the bleed out onto the Buran player. So a little bit of a gift bag for them on their exit here, but definitely not a game that Astra wanted or really needed in this situation.
So the gap is 42 points. They brought it back down slightly, Edge, but Miramar out. Defiant have only got 2 players though, so you kind of expect them to not gain much from this game. This is primed right now. If you're Fury, Division X, Bay, those 3 teams, what do they have in common? They've got 4 players alive. What else do they have in common? Well, Bay have got a good position. Fury can have a good position right now. Of course, they're currently focused on from the future. So, and Division X are in a great spot too. This is a big fight for Fury though. There's a lot on the line, considering, of course, what has happened to Buran for second, and of course, Divine on just 2 players remaining. So you win this fight, you take out from the future, you get a good spot, and it can all just start to snowball into a huge game for Fury that could set them up for then another game in the next one.
Yeah, and Fury really needs to make light work of this fight right now. It is taking a little bit long, and the blue is closing in. They do have Waikakamukau sitting on the top of that ridge, having that little bit of cover, but the longer this fight takes, the harder it becomes for Fury. And if you get a player knocked right now, there's no reviving them. That blue is just a little bit too fast, and there's no way you can outrun it.
Game Home going to be coming in behind from the future as well. Could provide for more targets for Fury. That nade just exploding in front of Insight's face. We've still got all 4 players up here, Fury. They're not rushing this. They see something else now from behind getting involved with Game Home. There's going to be the knockdown from inside of the Defiant. Look for the second one. Still from behind. Game Home are making this very difficult from the future. Orprin's knocked down too. Now trying to get involved. Jukesy will clean up Defiant as Insight gets Glories. Fury are racking up kills, but they've lost Ronan in the process. He's knocked and he is going to be eliminated. And speaking of eliminated from the future around, something else though with the knockdown onto Jukesy as well. Fury, unfortunately, this is not clean from them. They may lose Insight here too, and if they do, they're only going to be down to Waikakamukau. 6 kills, but they have paid the iron price here for the kills that they've gotten.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. Fury lost 2 players there because they got knocked right on that blue zone. I feel like Fury could have definitely fallen off back up to Waikakamukau's position and easily held from there, but maybe a little bit too aggressive, and just that blue zone absolutely bites them in the backside, not being able to get their reses off.
Not a bad cycle though for Fury, especially. Not a bad cycle for Victim Rise. Genforce Chipper, it's going to be hard fed from that one. Severe's in a good spot for it too. This game feels like it's got Bay written all over it. From the position they're in, Turtle's got 1, gonna get 3. He's got 2, of course, with Momoji also knocked down. It's a 1v4 scenario. He can't take out Killer though, and that means also Divine Esports gain no more points this game because they just fell short of the placement points. So stuck on 154 points, Edge. They didn't gain a single point from this game, a donut, for the first time since round 7.
Yeah, and even though this is the scenario that Divergent and Fury needs, I don't really see Fury or Divergent getting much more out of this game. Fury being the two-man, Divergent being stuck in that crater. I'm not sure. I think maybe like placement points. That's probably about it at the moment.
And this has just again been a theme all season long. When Divine have a poor game, it's not like the team or any team below them goes and pops off and gets like a 20-pointer and really closes the gap in one quick swift hit. Fury down to 2 players. Like, yes, they've gained a couple of points so far. They've gained about 7 points on Divine. That's nice. It's nothing too amazing. 45-point gap. It's not that big. Whatever. There's still a chance for Division X for Bay, for instance, as well, to really get closer to Divine, but it's just not happening. Again, only the 3 kills for Bay. Can they finish off with around 11 or 12 in a win, though? Then you could see it really skyrocket. And not only that, but the direct competitor, Buriram, out without even getting placement points. So that also is just another horrible game for Buriram. It's the catch-22, though, of course, though. For Buriram, it's kind of like, all right, well, at least they didn't have a good game, so it's still only 42 points. But, man, that's where you really need to capitalize.
Yeah, and this is potentially the game where Bay can make up a lot of their points. They've got a really good high ground. They've got a big split. They can potentially pick up a lot of kills as this zone starts to shrink. If they're in the right position, they can potentially pick up all the kills on Divergent when they need to leave their compound.
Still 4 players up for Division X Gaming. As you mentioned, they will have to sort of make their way out of this compound, not just making their way out, but then also up this semi-crater. 10 more seconds until phase 7. They could just get a hard feed, though, and won't have to leave at all, and that really can change the tale of this tape. So teams from 3rd to 7 all still alive. And Division X now will have to make their way out of this game. It's set up for Bay. Fury, of course, Waika, Kamukau, and Insight in a really good spot too, where from that sort of position, if they take out Day Trade, maybe then they take out a wrapping Archangel Predator. They could also look down into the crater as well into Division X, and all from what is a relatively safe position and close to the next circle. So they're in a good spot. Obviously, Genfos, Chiberet are in the center of this circle, but sometimes being in the center is not necessarily safe.
Yeah, and this is the best case scenario for both Bay and Fury here. They can catch a lot of these teams as they're trying to make the push up the hill. They've just got to land their shots, make sure that the likes of Day Trade can't close the distance on them. We do see Flash make that run into the zone, but he puts himself in between multiple teams right now, and it could turn out poorly for him.
Can Insight land these shots? No, it's actually Norans who lands the shot back onto Insight. It's going to have to be using one of 2 of those first aid kits as Venonic is knocked down by Mamonji. Still not looking good though for Day Trade. And this is now also time for Division X Gaming to make their way out. There's Long K's knocked down. Fergus has been able to sort of just get to the crescent of this little hill that obviously Bay are holding on top of. Bay should be able to keep, ironically, Division X Gaming at bay here. There's no way, surely, that they make it up this hill against Bay. This should be 4 extra kills for Bay coming up.
Yeah, there should realistically be no way that Division X can push up this hill. They've got 1 car for cover. They've still got 2 players left to move. Even if they make it onto the side of the hill, there's no real chance. As we see Cow actually getting a nice knock there, and Sophia getting 2 beautiful knocks with that Molotov. So it's all left up to 1 player right now who's currently stuck inside the compound in the open in the bottom of the crater.
Gonna go for the revive into MBK. That is successful, so no extra kill for Cal. Still just the 6 kills in total for Fury. 2 more seconds until phase 8, and we'll see who gets the hard feed. It looks like it's right on top of Bay and VTR. Neil's knocked down by Flood. Genfos does get Sophia, who's kind of the frontline man right now for Bay. Flood is going to get Loki's. Insight and Cal still up. They're actually turning their attention now towards Archangel Predator, though. I wouldn't count Fury out from this game. Bay is copping a lot of attention edge from a lot of different teams.
Yeah, Bay's really getting sandwiched right now by a lot of 2-mans. Neverhor able to pick up 1 onto the Magic Gaming player. There's only 1 left surviving at the moment. And this is where VTR and Division X are starting to take their push. But Insight does pick up NBK. That'll halt the push onto Bay right now. Nephor gets the final kill, pardon me, onto the Magic Gaming players. So that'll be clearing one of their sides.
Oh, Killer, though, just wins the fight against Cow. And you win that initial knockdown, you get the right to go for the quick flush. He'll do just that. Insight's the solo now for Fury here. Final 5 teams here for day 4, match 3. One more game of Miramar to come after this. Memoji from behind just catches Gibber off guard. 8 kills now for Bay. They were successful in dealing with Division X Gaming, except for the fact that Fergus is still alive. Loki's, though, looking to send VTR out, and they do just that. This is a big game to win from here on out. Fury have actually, for the moment, jumped up into second place, though, above Buriram United. Fergus the solo, Insight the solo. I think Insight's gone here, courtesy of Flood. And we're down to the final 3. And surely now it's just a matter of Bay cleaning up the rest of the lobby. Fergus is spotted and flushed out by Sophia. Archangel Predator are down to 2 players, so it's a 4v2 with Bay having the high ground. And that's going to be surely them winning this game. It is 13 kill win. That is how you are able to make something out of a game where Divine get nothing. You then reduce the gap by 23 points. It's going to be, oh, I don't want to do quick maths, Edge, but I'm going to have to. I think it's like 37 points. I think I'm correct with that. I think it's like 37 points now. So we've got a team back into the 30s.
You're the mathematician on this one, and that puts Bay actually into that second position. So absolute monster of a game for Bay there. And this is exactly what they needed. Their Miramars had been extremely poor in the past, and now they've just picked it up.
Yeah, Bay jumping from 5th position all the way into 2nd place. And as I said, 37-point gap now, when it was almost, I think it was like almost 50 points. Something, oh no, it was even more than that. Something crazy prior to that game, 60-something points. So it goes to show you, though, and I know we've kind of been reiterating this throughout the broadcast, Edge, but this is kind of all it can take. A 23-point game while Divine gets nothing. You do that one more time, and then suddenly it's a 14-point gap.
Yeah, do that one more time and Divine's just going to start sweating. And Bay's done it time and time again. They get these big wins. If they can make themselves that little bit of space, they can definitely push forwards. And that's just shown. They keep 4 up. They have a good spot. They can farm the lobby, and they do it. They've just been such a force to be reckoned with when they get themselves the right circumstances.
23-point game for Battle Arena Elite. Archangel Predator coming away with 14 points in that game too. Fury, I mean, that's something. When Divine get nothing, you've at least gained 11 points on them. That brings the gap for Fury to Divine to 41 points. So not impossible with 9 games to go. If they can have a Bay-like game, for instance, as well, they'll be looking in much better shape. Of course, the right-hand side of the leaderboard for that particular game, Divine Esports, 0, 0, and 0. It hasn't happened since round 7. So about 7 rounds ago, really. It's been a long, long while since they really gained from a game. That's now 3 games, by the way, Edge. 3 games that Divine have got 0 points from, and yet they're on 154 points. So they've actually gained 154 points from 12 matches.
Yeah, it's a pretty monstrous effort there from Divine. But you can cut them a little bit of slack. You know, they can throw away a game here or there. You know, they're still relaxing in their armchairs. They're not really too worried about the rest of the pack right now. Having a little bit of a early end to their weekend, and going to go back into practice next week and make sure that they don't let any teams catch back up.
Yeah. Still, of course, though, Divine Esports, 154 points. They remain on 154 points. If they remain on 154 points, though, to end the night, man, I can't wait then to see what the likes of Buriram, Fury, Bay sort of end up on. That total leaderboard is super, super intriguing that it's wrong. I'm pretty sure Bay actually are on 117 points. So
yes, that is correct.
Disregard that one there. But hey, there's the damage from the particular game that we just saw. No surprise to see, of course, Fury and Bay leading the way. this has, of course, been Buram have technically dropped to 4th edge, just like that. So while a lot of the focus, of course, has been on Divine, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it's just a logjam as to sort of juggle who's going to end up finishing 2nd right now.
Yeah, and that's all it takes in these the top 5, top 6 spots is just one average bad game, and someone will just leapfrog you.
Well, we look at the highlights from match number 3 so far tonight. It was a game with promise. It was a game with party tricks, and it looked like a game that Divine were going to get off to the perfect start, but it wasn't to be. From picking up the first knockdown of the game to ending up with 0 points. Another unfortunate start for MSC Theraton. Astra were on the offensive front for the first time in a while, but then bowed out pretty soon after.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the game for Astra this one, which begs the question, when will the next game for Astra be? They haven't really had that showing since their 17-point second, and they sort of need to pull that magic trick back out once again.
Now, Turtle almost pulled out the heroics here for Divine, wasn't to be, which of course kept them on those 0 points. Bay only had 3 kills by this situation towards phases 6 and 7, but they racked them up towards the end from their position, playing it very, very well, playing a nice controlled manner, not too passive, but also not too aggressive, and it worked out perfectly for Battle Arena Elites in the end, Edge. So look, they're going to have to do it at least one more time, and they're going to have to hope to Divine another poor game. Divine have shown us, though, they don't really have multiple poor games in a row. The last time that happened was rounds 2 and 3, where they got 0 and 2 points in those 2 respective games. Other than that, the other games where they finished with 0 points, they then backed it up with, well, in the other case was a win. So they are a team that doesn't make mistakes often, and they don't make mistakes too many times in a row. We've got one more game to go, though, tonight. Will we see Bay, Fury, Ram continue to put the pressure onto Divine Esports, or will Divine bite back like they usually do? One more game to go tonight for PCS2 APAC. Divine Esports ended up the last game with 0 points. Of course, they're usually the major talking point for the other reason, which is usually getting a whole heap of points and kills. But Edge, that last game wasn't to be. It was Bay's game, though. They had 23 points gained. They've been able to reduce the margin to 37 points. And if they can do it just one more time, who knows? We could be in the 10s. We could be in the 10s, Edge, in terms of the gap going into next weekend, which would certainly keep a lot of people sweating about their pick'ems, and not only the people watching, but also, of course, Divine Esports themselves. So, of course, they'll be looking to bounce back here for the final game of the night.
Yeah, and if you're a Divine fan, you're absolutely loving it. If you're not the Divine fan, you should be loving it as well, because these teams are keeping it interesting. If you're watching your favorite team, whether it's Bay, Miramar, Fury, all grinding it up, making a little bit of point gain here and there, you know, it's good PUBG, and you just love to see it.
The last time that Battle Arena Elites picked up a chicken dinner here for PCS2 APAC, it was a 17 kill win. This time it was a 13 kill win. But also, after that win, Edge, they finished second with 7 kills. So they showed they are able to back it up. They are able to do it in a couple of games in a row. Then after that, they even had a 3rd place 5-kill performance, and then kind of went on a bit of a slump. But the slump was more so last night. Obviously, they picked up technically 1 point on the entire night, 74 to 75. When you look at the night as a whole being wasted, then you look at their performance tonight. It's really unfortunate they weren't able to pick up such 20, 30 points.
Yeah, and if I'm Bay, realistically, what you want to be working on is your consistency, because you can have these big games, you can outperform other teams, you can do a lot of work, but without any of that consistency, it's really not worth too much. So Bay's really going to be looking to come out here, put consistent points on the board, and just try and catch up to Divine here.
Final game of the night, it's of course Miramar one more time. Match 4 of day 4. Points per map for Miramar has now dropped a little bit for Divine from the 12.6 to 11.1. Fury right below them on 10.4. And then after that, it's Daylight, really. So we kind of summarized it at the start of game 3 that those were the 2 teams we felt would perform really well on Miramar. Of course, Divine did not. Fury certainly did. And then Bay with their lush 3. Really, that was their best Miramar performance so far of the tournament. So it goes to show that if you can, of course, do it on both maps, you're going to be rewarded for it. And Bay climb up the points per map ranking because of it. The kills, though, it's all day trade. Divine, Fury on the kills as we head over to what's going to be the eastern portion of Miramar for this game. So at least something different.
Yeah, a little bit of change in pace here, and again, we just see Divine's already in the center of the map. I feel like every Miramar we've had so far has seen Divine's starting position be where the circle is ending. So, you know, maybe Divine knows something that we don't here, but Divine looking to put in that work here. They've already got that central zone. They don't have to really look too much further, as the likes of Bay will have a long distance to travel to their loot spot. But we've got a lot of teams that are still going to try and make this work, still going to try and put the fight back into make up some positions.
Battle Arena Elites, of course, we've spoken at length about their performance last night, and we've now spoken at length about their performance so far tonight. Total polar opposite. From a high point night, which of course is tonight, to essentially nothing last night. They've gained about 42 points, I think, so far tonight, coming into this final game. And you just kind of get the feeling as a team that can really ride that momentum wave. If you get another 10 to 15 point game here, and you then yourself hope that Divine don't get much, it really sets you up for a tilt at that top spot next weekend, where, of course, there will be 8 more games still to be played. So plenty of games and plenty of time. The beauty, of course, with this format is you get the week off. You get to review everything just that one more time before you play next weekend.
Yeah, and if you've had a rough night or even an average night, you can reset. You can watch over all of your VODs and take notes of what your opponents are doing, and make any sort of changes possible to ensure that you're going to have a better night, or even if you're Divine, ensure that you have another consistent night.
As we saw in match 3, quiet start, usually the norm on Miramar, kind of expected to happen again here. Cerberus, good spot, north side of La Bendita, which is kind of around where X Stadium are located. A lot of teams already in this phase 1 circle, though. There's actually not too many outside of the circle, and the ones that are, like MSC, Division X, kind of expect them to get in quite comfortably, especially if MSC go the Al Azhar way. They'll be able to really have a nice spot in the northern side of the zone. Buriram, of course, they like to play on the edge, and kind of expect them to do that here again. It's just their style. They're in 4th place, though. As I said, they have dropped out of the top 3 for what feels like almost the first time all tournament, or at least since the early going. So it is that log jam between Bay, Fury, Buriram, Division X, and then a little bit of separation to VTR and Day Trade.
Yeah, there's really not much in it, but we do see a very aggressive Fury making a breach towards J-End and co. And Divine actually picking up a kill on from the future off to the side. And it looks like Ronan's trying to go for that chase down onto Diane as he's going to regroup with the rest of his team. So interesting scenario here is there is the breach from the future.
Big repercussions here. Divine lose this. Now, Levi's did already get that early kill. Diane's low. Turtle, though, usually good with quick transfers. Gets 1, gets 2. Turtle is not slow at all. Not this Turtle. Orkaran, though, did get Diane just prior to that. Now gets Turtle knocked down. Now gets the double flush, too, as well. Now, no member so far from the future have been flushed. Jayan with the nade can go for the flush onto Divine, who's probably going to just bleed out regardless. In fact, that nade's for the backside. That's a perfectly placed nade onto Orkaran. J-End, Levi's survive, 4 kills. Ronan, though, circling around, is going to pull up. Jukesy close to his right-hand side. 2 members left for Divine. 4 kills, but it's more of the same, Edge. This is what they do. They find 4, 5, 6 or so kills, and then they go out with no placement points. Fury, are they the ones to send them out here? 4 points is okay, nothing special, and then it just sets the tone now for the final game if Divine get eliminated here. Or what could be really bad is if Fury feed kills to J-End and Levi's.
Yeah, that's definitely not what you want to do if you're in Fury's position here. They have all finally regrouped here, and they're going to be looking to take the fight. But Divine have put themselves in very defensible positions right now, looking to take sort of separate fights. Fury going to be taking the split. J-End gets 1 onto Insight, not the opener that Fury was looking for, but Jukesy coming in very aggressively to try and get trades. Jukesy picks up 1, J-End will get the other one, and Ronan will pick up the other onto J-End. So good trades there by Fury. You've only been knocked out, and it was very sketchy for a moment there. Was
it ever? Well played in the end, though. You could kind of see the idea that J-End was going for there at the end, expecting Fury to come from both sides. Didn't happen that way. So Divine, 4 points from the final 2 games on Miramar. And, you know, Edge, we spoke about it. We saw the points per map for Miramar. It was 12.6 coming into tonight. After tonight, it's probably dropped to about 10 maybe at best. So they've really just given everybody below them a fighting chance going into the final weekend, and a bit of sweat and a bit of nerves potentially for the pick'em challenges for Divine going into that final weekend. There's still 8 games to go. It's not over yet, especially now that Bay, Fury, Buriram, if they can all find, well, not all of them obviously, that would be very unlikely, but if 1 or 2 of them can find 10 to 20 points in this game, it's game on with 8 games to go. Yeah, and if you're the likes of Bay or Buriram, you should be definitely giving Fury a little bit of a clap right now for taking Divine out of the game. If they had have been left surviving in that compound, there's a high likelihood of getting placement points and potentially getting more kills. So this gives everyone a little bit of a sigh of relief, knowing that they've got the chance to gain points right now. But Divine did get that 4 points buffer before they left the server. Certainly got to say, for Divine Esports, it wasn't the night they would have wanted to sort of just wrap everything up, because I was happy to call it. I said it at the start of the night. With 8 games to go, if the lead is something like 60 plus points, I'm all for it. And that's not going to be the case now. It's going to be around 30 half of that, which is crazy to think about. It could have honestly been even 70 points edge. And you know, these are obviously now hypotheticals that can't happen, but they were at the time very, very valid and likely hypotheticals.
Yeah, and 30 points is definitely doable. And teams are really going to have to put their big boy boots on and go for some big boy frags. So there's a lot of work to be done still to catch up. They want to make sure that they don't die early, that they can get into those placement points and carry some kills ahead. And the zone does go north. So Buran, a team who likes to play on the edge, has now been given the gift of the center of the zone. So it'd be interesting to see how they actually play this one out.
Really good for Genex Gaming and Buru Ramp. Not so good for Fury. Bay are going to love this. If you look at their position edge, they're on that western side. They're going to have free real estate wherever they want on the western side of this phase 2 circle, which looks really small for whatever reason for phase 2. Probably because there's just so many teams around this area that have to make their way in. This is going to be tough for Fury from here. They may just have to fight it out with their sister team Astra from OCE, potentially.
Yeah, Fury's got a pretty big rotate ahead of them, but Fury again, another team that does enjoy playing off the edge and trying to push into other teams to fill their kill count. But they do hot some shots towards Astra, and we did see Insight lose his car, so that's going to stump their rotate for a little bit now. But they shouldn't be too bad, as most of the central teams have worked their way. Sorry, the south teams have worked their way to the center, so it's going to be freeing up a little bit of space now for Fury.
It's kind of weird, but like technically Divine has still gained 2+ points over Fury. You know, we talk about Divine bowing out, but I mean, all it takes is a pretty quick stumble from Fury, and then technically it's a +2 for Divine this game, and there's still technically also +4 on Bay. So those 4 points, I mean, and it's just the nature of Divine as a whole. When they go out early, like this is not the first time they've gone out early. This is not a surprising thing, but usually go out with 6 or 7 kills. This time it's only 4, but it's still 4. It's still something. And that's been the mantra for them and the reason why they're in top spot right now. You take out those 50-50 games where it comes down to winning those fights early, and maybe they drop to something like 130 points, for instance.
Yeah, that's right. And we've got a fight here now between the two OCE teams in Fury and Astra. And Cow pulling up abruptly, not to his own liking, as he did roll his car, but now both teams have kind of committed to this fight, as we've got one player from Astra doing overlook on top of the hill and the rest of Fury in the compound. So we've technically got a bit of a 3v4 now, and it looks like we've got a stalemate for now. But they will be looking for the picks.
There's a big fight, really, for both teams as well. Astra looking to turn their fortunes around. And trust me, they would not care at all if they wiped out Fury here and stopped them from challenging Divine. They couldn't care less. And obviously Fury would respect that. And would have knocked them out too, and further put the pain into Astra and what's been a troubling tournament for them. We have a look at Magic Esports, who are the closest to Battle Arena Elite's edge. And I mentioned earlier that Bay could sort of get anything on the western side that they wanted. What do you make of their position that they've taken here? Very northern, not so much central, but technically central to them would be something like Minas, and that's too early for that.
Yeah, definitely too early to commit all the way to Minas. But where Bay's position currently, you have a lot of on foot potential, and that's what Bay loves to do. They love to spread out and start going for those picks on teams around. So probably a good zone for Bay here, even though they've been put onto the edge now. It's probably still a favorable edge play for them.
This is a good circle for this exchange between Fury and Astra, though. They're in. They don't have to worry too much. This push here is not because of time. It's not because of the circle. And Cal getting Zoid, so they're all but confirmed now. They definitely know who they're dealing with here. Ronan going to push up, try and get aggressive here. Just catches Nico's completely off guard with how quick he was able to just wrap up and get onto him. Now over to the stairs battle, which is always going to favor the player on the top floor. Thinks he's going to make use of that. Insight's not two. Jukes is going to push up, hit by a spray, successful. Only one left for Astra, and he gets shot down by Jukesy. Jordan DeRoe gets him 6 kills now for Fury. They're +2 on Divine this game. Anything from here is a bonus. It already is a bonus, and they're into second place. They send Astra out. The sister team from OCE gets nothing from that fight as well. All the revives will happen.
Yeah, and so about 2 to 3 minutes ago, we were just saying how Fury was still behind, only getting 2 points to Divine's 4, and now Fury stepping it up and putting up 6 kills on the board. So a really good start for them, only losing 1 player. But you carry this into the late game and you're in such a good position. If you can get into placement points, that's just a cherry on top of the ice cream right now.
It's a pretty big ice cream, and Bay want a slice of that ice cream. It's not a cake. Could have used a different analogy there, but still, no kills yet for this game for Bay. And they're going to have to push through Magic Esports, the team in second last on the standings. You would think that they should be able to just brush them aside. Honkei's knocked down, who's usually probably been Magic Esports' best player. Valix has been thereabouts as well. Sophia up top. You do have to be careful sort of terrain, walking around that terrain. If you can get stuck up there, depending on sort of the way coming down and the circle, if teams are watching you come down, for instance. So not really the best fight to be taking on this sort of terrain for Bay this early on, especially when you need to focus on this upcoming Phase 4 circle.
Yeah, and Bay has their backup plan. They've got Loki's who's already taken a position in the zone. So as soon as they deem it necessary, they're just going to fall on out of this fight. They don't need to overcommit and potentially lose lives, and they can just back up with ease, as Flood's taking a little bit of a journey into the blue zone as we see, but just to pick up another vehicle for Neff.
We'll pan over to Fury, and as I said before, the position they were in that compound with Astra was not an essence of time. They obviously got the Phase 3 circle to buy them a lot of time. VTR close by around that position too. Now, will they stay in? Yes, they will. Not just them. This is a nightmare game for Divine, because Division X, Junkyard, Buram, probably best spot in the zone, and Fury, second best spot in the zone. If there's a nightmare scenario for Divine, it's happening right now.
Yeah, this is definitely nightmare worthy here for Divine, but Fury is in a good spot. They can work up the hills late game, even if the circle goes off them, and they should be able to pick up kills here and there off the likes of VTR. So potentially a very good game for Fury. And Bay is in a little bit of trouble right now, as they don't have much to play with, and Sophia's getting shot from across the map by Cerberus right now. So it's going to be a struggle for Bay to get in the zone. Cerberus as well, not really too much to play. Game Home is even worse off, being stuck on the far edge in Minas currently. So a lot of teams going to need to be either making big breaches or big plays to just send it into the center of the map and just hope that you can get a nice little formation of defilades to play in.
And how many teams will try and breach Buram, for instance? Because a lot of the teams are more so on the western side. Cerberus, Game Home, Magic Esports, Bay, obviously Division X. Don't expect them to move too far from Junkyard. Now, Kaiser Tuna on the rotation. We've been following them for a little while from the southern end of the circle. They've got 2 options here. Actually, they've got 3 options. Either Buram, Fury, or find a piece of terrain they feel is safe. It looks like it's going to be the terrain close by to Fury. So very close. It's a good spot. But this is Miramar in a nutshell. We keep sort of mentioning it, that you can find these really weird spots where you're quite safe, even though you're out in the open.
Yeah, that's right. And you really don't know that they're there until you stumble upon it. So these players, they all have thousands and thousands of hours in game, and even still you'll watch a game or you'll play a game and you'll find something new every time. So it's a good job by Kaiser Tuna to find a good compound, and then we've got a big fight break out here.
There's a 3-way right now between Magic Esports, Cerberus, Game Home. Still going to be knocked down by something else. That's Game Home onto Magic Esports. They've lost 2 now, which is 1 for Cerberus, 1 for Magic Esports. Now, the bad news here is that this is going to take kills away from Buram, kills away from Bay, for instance, because these 3 teams are just basically decimating each other. Loki's, though, spots Smell sitting at the rock. That's going to be the end of Cerberus Esports, and that's going to be Bay on the board with their first kill of the game. Can it get them going? He spots a member of Buram sitting inside of that shack as well. But Game Home and obviously Magic Esports still just battling it out here. Pios Glory, something else just going to vacate. They'll leave God New behind as Tonkay will get that kill. Amuma and Tonkay still up. Buriram trying to get on the kill board, and sometimes you get these feeds and you've got these compounds, but you just can't get the kills because of it.
Yeah, and something I'd just like to point out there is how good Bay's play has been, because Magic Gaming actually left the shanty town that was to the north of the compound, and Bay, as soon as they saw him leave, they just drove in and started stealing kills on the outside. So real heads-up play from Bay there, and worked very well in their favor. It looks like they might be able to catch out NBK from Division X Gaming, as Bay is very close and NBK is out very far by himself here.
NBK sitting at the rock, and as he said, very far away from the rest of his team. That's going to be a knockdown. Lush, yes, it will be. Lokers will bleed out the last couple of seconds here and is eliminated. We've seen the circle move with phase 5. Jukes is knocked down by Neza elsewhere. So Bay down to 3 and potentially Fury down to 3 as well, unless Ronan can get the save onto Jukes. We watch Division X versus Bay. That nade is also successful. To Neferhor at half health. Neil going for a second one here. Bay need to win this fight, otherwise they're not going to gain anything on Divine this game. Only the 2 kills. They've got 3 players up. And in the kill feed, you can see Fury just getting torn to shreds right now. They're unfortunately down to Insight and Waiki Kamukau. This is good news, though, for, of course, Division X and Buriram. You take out these other competing teams along the way and gain the points for yourselves. Cal does get Musate. Not much really happening here, though, as we switch over. So Kaiser Tuna are down to just Neza, Insight, and Cal in a 2 versus 1. They need to try and confirm Neza to get the other 3 that are knocked down. It's like a pool of points just sitting there for them, waiting to be confirmed. They've got 7 right now. It could potentially jump up to 11 if they can just finish off Neza here.
Yeah, Waikikamuka able to confirm a kill onto Bot Bass, and it looks like Style G will bleed out, so it's only Musate left knocked out currently. Insight will be going for that kill. Neza will pick it up, but Waikikamuka is there to trade it out. Now it's very rough for Waikikamuka as he is getting shot by VTR in the back, and the fight between Bay and Division X Gaming is still happening, and Division X Gaming has only committed 2 players for they can win against Bay here.
9 teams remaining, 29 alive. The mission right live for as long as possible. Get placement points. Bay, Neferhor knocked down. It's not been the backup game that we would have been expecting from them after picking up the win in match 3. They haven't quite been able to have the same success here in match 4. Flood's going to stick it. He's going to go for the confirmed revival to Neferhor. If it's successful, at least back up to a 3v4 scenario. But Division X gaining ground, pushing up onto Bay. They've been so methodical with this approach here from Division X. They're not rushing it. They're not really overplaying their card here, just using as much utility, finding a few cheeky knocks, and just keeping Bay under pressure.
Yeah, and Division X has so much map control here. If they win this fight against Bay, they have such a good chance going into the next circles, as we do see the zone shifts over towards Ferg. And we will get the first knock from Neil onto one of the Bay players. So it's only up to a 2v3 currently, and now Buriram comes in from behind and will pick up the flush onto Neferhor.
Yeah, this is not looking good at all now for Bay. Unfortunately, just not able to make too much use of the ground that they once had. They're going to go out 9th, no placement points. And it does mean they don't really gain much on Divine at all in this game, particularly. Of course, they're still going to be thereabouts. With 8 games remaining, they're not totally out of it. It's like, what, 39 points with 8 games, so they will feel like they've still got a chance. Of course, as we said before, it could have easily ballooned out to something like 70 points, so could have been worse, but probably for their sake could have also been better. Now, Buriram United Esports have still got 4 players alive, only 1 kill. Now they're going to knock down onto Glorious. They're also going to start getting placement points. Can they make a late charge here in this game? You also mentioned before the phase 6 zone moved over to Fergus for Division X. That is true, but it also moved over to Waikikamuka. So Fury have an opportunity, as long as he doesn't get spotted, if they get top 5 or top 4 from this game, to go along with their 10 kills.
Yeah, as long as no one clears out Waikikamuka, he should be in a pretty safe position to get get some points now. But from what I can see on the map, he's actually starting to get very active behind MSC. MSC's
man,
already had
that's
one
risky.
player knocked, and he's extended out. So risky play for Cal, but he's decided the better of him to just back off and just stay safe for now.
3 kills now for Miramar United. They've made a late charge here, which typically suits their playstyle. They're happy to play edge. They're happy to come in late, clean up kills, push in with those kills, and then get high placement points to go with it. So right now, it kind of feels like, well, while it doesn't feel like it's in Buriram's control, it can just shift like that so quickly. They can push up north, wipe Division X, and then I think from there they win the game. It's either Division X or Buriram who I think is going to win this game right now. That's just my gut feeling, that one of those two up north wins a fight between each other and then cleans up the rest of the server. MSC Theraton just so close to Waikiki Mukau. He did try and move before, put a bit of pressure on them, let sort of them know that there's someone around here just to keep them honest a bit. But 4 members of MSC, you think at some point Cal is going to go down. It's just a matter of how many placement points can he secure with those 10 kills that they've already gotten earlier on.
Yeah, those 10 kills could have gone a long way if they were able to keep the 4 players up, but it just wasn't meant to be. Now Cal's just going to be trying to get anything extra he can. And I'd put MSC, in my opinion, in probably the best chance right now. And the circle shift definitely favors them as well. They've got so much terrain. As long as they can hold off day trade and clear out Cal, I think they're in a really good position to potentially take out this game.
Burim have got vehicles. Nordra's got a knockdown onto J-Ken as well from X Stadium. Division X still just holding up here on the northern side. They've sort of got overwatch of the position that Buriram are going to be in very, very shortly. Now, Buriram have elected to actually go for a south side push here, with Nortra taking the pickup truck closer towards X Stadium. Pios is still alive as well for Game Home as a solo player. So where I thought potentially we would see Division X and Buriram collide up north, Buriram have actually elected to go south. This may then in turn mean Division X actually moves over towards MSC, which is actually what we're seeing from Day Trade Gaming right now. This is great news for Cal. This is bad news for MSC because Venotica has the initial knockdown and the flush as well onto Rossiter Jr. Day Trade, 5 of 5 now. There's Cal with the rock, looking to see whether he can get involved. Also just keeping an eye behind him, making sure that no one's pushing. But at the end of the day, if someone comes from behind, there's nothing he's really going to be able to do about it. Fergus has just blown up Vega God. What a nade! Division X getting involved from across the road, and MSC are down to just 2 players remaining, Yanku and Yoshi Mimburi, and they're not even inside of the circle right now. This is also allowing Buriram United Esports to get good position on the southwest portion of the circle, and even they can get involved from a distance. Edie with a knockdown to Marcus. He's looking to get a second one, and he does, and that goes X Stadium out in 7th. 6 teams left, and there's about to be a pile-up out to the east.
Yeah, look at this east side of the circle. This is best case scenario for Waikiki Mukau here. He can potentially pick up another 2 placements here without having to do absolutely anything. So this is great for him, and maybe he even comes in late and third parties this Division X versus MSC fight.
Top 4.
Yeah, top 4. This is where the placement points start to get juicy now.
It's going to be top 3 because MSC Theraton are eliminated. Look at that. The nightmare is all but confirmed for Divine. The top 3 remaining teams are the teams in the top 5. Fury, Buriram, Division X. If you think APAC PCS2 is over, think again, because we're going to have an intriguing finish next weekend. Divine Esports are going to be about 30 points roughly. It could even get into the 20s if Cal can stay alive. That's a big if though now, because look how surrounded he is. Surely it's going to come down to Division X versus Buriram. Buriram have the numbers advantage. They've got 4 players up. They've been quiet all game, but as it matters towards the end, they've been able to play that edge game, get kills, slowly push in, and just take over. They've got the entire circle to themselves. They can pick up a maximum of 4 kills, plus then the win itself, which will see them skyrocket into the 130 points mark, bringing that gap against Divine into the 20s with 8 games to go.
And there's a definite chance for Cal to pick up a 2nd place here. If Buriram and Division X fight breaks out and he's just the last man surviving, this could be a game for him right now. But it does look like Division X is starting to put a lot of pressure on with this knock onto Nordra. So Division X, a lot of work to do. They've only sort of, again, committed 2 people to this fight, and they've got their one player in NBK sitting off to the sidelines. So Fergus will engage the fight against Canaxi.
What?
Not able to do anything as Edie will take him down. NBK will find Black Kick Murkow on the sidelines. Edie will pick up Fergus. God Meow taking some shots onto NBK. So this fight is going backwards and forwards. We're left all up to Neil right now, and he's got 4 angry BRU players on his tail.
Oh, you can say 4 angry men, but it's not the team. It's Miramar United Esports. 9-kill win. They jump up to 131 points. They jump up into the top 2, and they are now 23 points behind Divine Esports with 8 games to go. That is more than manageable. They're in with a shot, and you definitely can't count these guys out from Thailand going into next weekend. Not just them, but also Fury and Division X and Bay are all keeping Divine honest. And the thing is, the last 2 games from Divine tonight, leaving so much to be desired, Edge, that if they start next weekend off with a poor couple of games, say the first 2 games, that league could be all but gone.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're Divine, you're getting kind of worried about choking right now. You've still got that little bit of a buffer, but 1 game and it comes in within 5-10 points. So that's all it takes. You can't really afford to screw it up. You need to come out. You need to show everything that you've been doing previously. You just need to keep consistent scoring games. And if you can't, that's where teams are going to make their points.
Man, look, I mean, I know tonight's sort of just been the focus on what's Divine. By the way, I said 23. It's actually 27 points. I was looking at the old Wikipedia when they were on 154. So 27 points. Still, it's not it's not bad at all considering where it once was. For those who maybe only just tuned in or have just popped in, at one point Divine was leading by like 52 points with 3 or 4 games remaining tonight. So that, as we said earlier on in the broadcast, could have extended out to 70 points, and yet now it's a 27-point gap. Buriram 19, Fury 15, Division X 12. They all kind of spread those points out as much as they could. The 3 teams directly below Divine. Bay's in there as well, but they only picked up 2 points this game. Their points, of course, came from match 3, where they had 23. So they picked it up in that game in particular. So as we look at the total leaderboard now, this is what I'm saying. 27-point gap between Buriram and Divine. Incredible. And it's only a 30-point gap for Fury. Nothing, basically. Does get a little bit larger there. 39, of course, with Battle Arena Elites. And then 40 on the dot for Division X Gaming. But at one point, as we keep saying, Edge, it could have easily been 70 points between first and second.
Yeah, and it just really goes to show that you just can't count anyone out at this stage. And even for the likes of Fury, they still haven't got that chicken dinner on the board. The only team from the top 7 who does not have a win yet to their name. So Fury still has a lot of work to do, and they've been showing that they can get the kills, they can do everything they need to do, but they just need to convert it to a win to put themselves up into the numbers with Divine.
Let's have a look at the highlights from the final game of tonight. It started off with Divine. They've just been everywhere. They had to get into this very, very early fight. Well, I don't know if they had to, but they were definitely forced into it by Fury. They did win the fight. They picked up all 4 members of From the Future, although they did lose 2 in exchange, Diana Turtle. Subsequently, straight away after that, Fury came for basically the dessert that they had set up earlier. After that, of course, they did get the 2 kills onto Divine, then moved over to Astra, which put them up to 6 kills. And from there, they ended up having a pretty good game. As for Bay, well, they had a pretty good spot in the zone. Probably should have done more with it, but unfortunately, of the 4 teams right behind Divine, they had the worst of them.
Yeah, that's right. Bay weren't able to put up the numbers they definitely needed here, but they showed a lot of signs of life now. So they've brought back their Miramar averages, and they're starting to have some good ones. So it'll be definitely interesting to see the last week of PCS APAC coming out next weekend.
Division X Gaming, kind of like Buriram, a little bit slow to get into the game, but once they did, they racked up the kills, they got the placement points, and they finished very, very strongly to end off the second weekend of PCS2 APAC. Of course, I keep saying it, we've got 8 more games, we've got 1 more weekend next Saturday, next Sunday, 4 and 4 games still. So a lot of games still to be played technically now, considering that the scoreboard is a lot closer. If we were sitting here and the margin between first and second was 60 points, I'd say maybe don't even bother really showing up. But now, if you miss out on next weekend, you're probably going to miss out on a cracker of a night for APAC 2 Edge.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. From what the start of the night we were saying, it's kind of looking like it's over. 50 points is not really that easy to come back on, but teams have shown their resilience. They're really coming out and they're just putting in the work that they realistically should have done a lot earlier.
We got an interview tonight from one of the Oceanic teams. Unfortunately, the team that is struggling from Astra, it is Nick who's coming up for an interview. Who I almost feel bad for making you come on for coming on and doing this interview, mate. It hasn't been going well for you guys, and I just sort of want your own thought on maybe why that is.
To be honest, I think it's just we can't really adapt to the APAC playstyle that well. We tried to change things up into play more center and crashing teams, but it didn't go too well for us, obviously. We got 7 points tonight. But yeah, we can't really struggling to adapt, I guess.
Okay. And now I just want to take things away from this week's games a little bit. I want to know, did you ever expect yourself to become a professional gamer?
Um, yeah, kind of. I think when I was playing CS like 5 years ago, my aim was pretty good, and I was like, yeah, I can. This is kind of what I want to do, so I'm gonna try chase this, I guess. And then when PUBG came out, I just continued and tried to get on a good team, and now here I am.
So it's worked out pretty well for you. Now,
Yeah.
one tip for up and coming gamers, looking to get into those top teams and looking to become esports professionals, what would you give them?
I think a problem OS has a lot is they try to focus on the aim too much, and they don't really. They kind of just disregard everything else of their gameplay. I think they should look at other things of their gameplay and try to improve those instead of their aim. And then and the aim's going to get better anyway the more they play.
Last question, mate, before I let you go. You got one more weekend. You got 8 more games. Has the, I guess, goal shifted a little bit here away from things like first, second, and third to something a bit more like top 5 or even top 8? Really, at this point, you kind of obviously running out of games now. But is that sort of the mindset you guys have to approach now for the final weekend?
Yeah, our goals have definitely dropped. I think we just want to be better than last time, which is 10th. Hopefully, we can get top 6, but I don't know how realistic that is. So yeah, better than last time, hopefully.
About 30 points behind. 30 points behind there for top
Yeah.
6. So not impossible. You are sitting 10th at the moment. Definitely 8th, 9th, 10th is would be the goals. Look, I wish you the best of luck for next weekend, mate. Hopefully things can turn around for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
So only the one interview tonight, as we of course had the other guys last night. But look, I'm very, very much excited for next weekend as we kind of wrap things up here tonight for PCS2 APAC Edge. It's really had it all, hasn't it? We've been very fortunate. APAC's one of the regions that you just really want to sit back and watch because you just don't know what's going to happen. Divine, of course, have been leading the way, but now we've seen that teams are hot on their heels for next weekend.
Yeah, APAC's definitely always interesting, and to have close games, whether it's not between the first or second team, but your second to sixth pack is always interesting, and they've really been bringing out some good games towards the end here. Like we saw in our last game, we've got 3 teams that were all fighting for those top positions, and they're farming the rest of the lobby, getting most of the points here.
Of course, tonight was the last showing for you guys with the Pick'em Challenge, but I think you've got a couple more days before you have to submit it. But the points are final. And for those watching along at home, Edge, what would be your advice? Would you give still Divine the benefit of the doubt and predict them, would be choosing them for your Pick'ems?
I think realistically at this point, definitely go Divine.
Definitely go Divine. Look, I definitely would say Divine as well is the safe bet, but make sure to tune back in next weekend. Who knows what could happen? It could be Bay, it could be Fury, it could be Fury, Buriram. Who knows? It could be any of those teams catching up to Divine Esports. 8 games remain for PCS2 APAC. Tune in next weekend. On the other side, though, after a couple of hours, Europe will be starting later on. So tune in for that one as well. We'll see you next weekend.